This is what approximately $4,000 worth of virginity looks like. I have considered myself a collector of video games for about 4 years or so. It started the summer before my freshman year of college when I gained an interest in playing the games and systems that I didn't get a chance to experience when I was younger. About a year after that, I uploaded my first vlog where I showed off my rather limited video game collection at that point. A year and a half after that, I uploaded another vlog where I showed off how my collection had grown, and it's been about 2 years since that, so I figure it's about time to do another one. My collection has grown by quite a bit within the last couple of years, within the last year in particular, and so I figured this is probably the last of these vlogs I can do where I give an overview of my entire collection. If I keep going at the rate I am, then in future vlogs I might have to limit it to just one system or series of systems, that sort of thing. Just Nintendo games, just PlayStation games, so on and so forth. So I figured while I'm at it, let's do a really intensive look at the various games that I have in my collection. I mean, you've seen the video length, you know what you're in for. We're going to start up here, work our way down there, which means we are going to kick things off with Battlefield 2042. This is not a great way to begin. So yeah, one of the most infamous launches in recent memory, possibly of all time. Just super glitchy, super empty. It was an unfinished game at launch, basically. It's a much better game now, by which I mean it's actually playable. Battlefield 2042. It's a pretty solid Battlefield game. If you're into Battlefield, you're gonna have a good time with this, but I tried getting into it last year after all the things had been fixed and content was continually coming out for the game, and it was just, it was not for me. I couldn't get into it. I've never been a big Battlefield or first-person shooter guy. Anyways, it always looked like a lot of fun, but yeah, not for me, unfortunately. Elden Ring, I mean, this is a significant improvement. Way to go from the lowest of lows to the highest of highs. Elden Ring, in my opinion, is one of the few must-have titles on the latest generation of consoles. It's been, super fun. I haven't even gotten all that far in the game, honestly, but I've had just an absolute blast screwing around in the open world in the starter area. It's super detailed, it's super beautiful. There's a ton of great bosses, tons of great, really intense, clunky combat, but I love every minute of it. Such a fun time. It really is one of the few must-haves for PS5 and Xbox Series X, in my opinion. Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. We've got, quite a few of these remakes, re-releases, remasters of older, PS4 games coming back out on PS5, definitive editions, that sort of thing. And while I'm not, a huge fan of most of them, I feel like this is one of the first ones I picked up. And of them, it's probably one of the better ones. I mean, it's the Final Fantasy VII Remake with the intermission DLC already bundled in, so I mean, it's a solid deal. It's a solid game. I got it for $50 when it was still pretty new, and honestly, that's a pretty solid deal on what was still a pretty new game in the Final Fantasy VII Remake, plus the DLC bundled in. And now it's the most expensive PS5 game I own, so there's that for some reason. Final Fantasy 16, one of the newer games in my collection. Haven't played it yet. I picked it up fairly recently. Haven't had the chance to experience it yet, but it looks pretty fun. It looks pretty cool. Haven't really dabbled in any of the Final Fantasy games aside from the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Just didn't have the chance to when I was younger. Didn't really get into that, but I've got Final Fantasy 16. I've also got Final Fantasy 15. I'll get into that, a little more into that eventually. But Final Fantasy 16 looks pretty cool. It looks like one of the top games of this past year. So it just looks like a really, really solid time. That action RPG combat that they've switched over into. So, yeah, solid enough looking time. Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut. I mean, like I was saying with the definitive editions and the Director's Cuts, there's quite a few of these. This is one of the few I've decided to pick up just because it was how I originally experienced the game. I mean, it's got the Iki Island DLC as well as the Legends multiplayer mode already bundled in. So, I mean, it's not like a terrible value or anything. And it's already a phenomenal game. I mean, Ghost of Tsushima is so fun. It's so beautiful. It's got phenomenal combat. Genuinely one of the most fun open world games I have played in a long time. I really do love this game. And the director's cut, it's a solid enough addition. So to me, it was worthy of being picked up. Grand Theft Auto 5, yeah, I'm one of those people. Originally, I experienced Grand Theft Auto on my PC, and it's a pretty fun game. Grand Theft Auto 5 is Grand Theft Auto 5. It's one of the best-selling games of all time. Most people have experienced it in one way or another, and I wanted a way to play it again. And my computer is really kind of old and slow, and I'm not sure if I can handle GTA 5 at the moment, so I decided to pick it up on the PlayStation 5, just because, why not? It's cheap, it's fun enough. I mean, it's Grand Theft Auto 5. You're going to be in for a good time, whether you decide to do the story mode, or the online multiplayer, or whatever you decide to do, whatever game mode you decide to get into. You're going to have a good time. It's Grand Theft Auto 5. Gran Turismo 7, I mean, it's Gran Turismo. There's really not much to say about it. It's just, if you're into racing games, you're into racing games, and if not, then you're not. You know if you want to get this game, or if you don't. There's really all there is to say. Hades is definitely one I had to get, though. I originally played it on the Switch. I had the digital version of the game, and I loved it so much that I needed to get a physical edition. And Hades on PS5, it's great too. Slightly improved visuals, I guess. The Switch is not quite as powerful as the newest consoles, but it looked great on the Switch. It looks phenomenal on the PS5. This is hands down just one of my favorite games, favorite indie games at least out there. I had such a blast playing through it, and it's always a game that I can come back to no matter how I'm feeling. If I'm in a rut, I don't know what game to play, I don't know what to do with myself, I can always come back to Hades, fire up a run, and just have an absolute blast no matter what I do. I guess it did for roguelikes what Persona 5 did for RPGs, at least to me, in that I had never really experienced or fallen in love with roguelikes. It wasn't really my thing, but then I played Hades and I liked this, so I decided to give roguelikes more of a chance. And hopefully the same is true for you if you have tried Hades or haven't yet tried Hades or roguelikes. Absolutely give Hades a shot. It's absolutely phenomenal. One of my favorite games in recent memory. Hogwarts Legacy came out this past year as one of my pickups, my few pickups from this past year for games, as far as 2023 games. It was okay. I'm not a huge fan of it or anything. I didn't have particularly high expectations for it. It didn't look all that phenomenal to me. Kind of really wasn't really a game I was paying attention to until shortly before it got released. I mean, I had my fun with it. It's fun. If you're a Harry Potter fan, you'll probably get a kick out of this. You'll probably enjoy the references to and exploring the world, that sort of thing. But for most people, it's really just kind of a, not much. There's no reason to play this if you're not a Harry Potter fan. That's about all there is to say. Spider-Man Miles Morales. I got this when I first got my PS5. This was part of the GameStop bundle that I bought that was how I acquired my PS5 fairly early on, was buying on to the GameStop bundles with this and Ratchet and Clank and gift cards and an extra controller all bundled in, which is all things I probably would have bought for the system anyways. So for me, it was kind of worth it. But yeah, this was one of the first games I played for my new system and was pretty disappointed by it, honestly. I mean, I played the original Spider-Man first, just so I knew what I was getting into. I went to Spider-Man Miles Morales, and it was just way shorter, way buggier, not nearly as deep or fun as the previous game. Plus, it reused the same map, a ton of the same missions, that sort of thing. It was just kind of a disappointing experience to me. Not outright bad, because it was still based on the same formula, and it's a pretty solid formula. But it just wasn't really any degree of a step up for the Spider-Man series, at least to me. So, I mean, you might get a kick out of it, but it was definitely not a great initial impression for the PS5. Spider-Man 2, this is also a launch edition. I got this pretty much right at release, or close to release, and it's been, it was a fun game. It was one of the better games to come out last year. I said this in the tier list, but it's not my favorite. I still prefer the original Spider-Man game to it. But I still had a good time with this game. It's pretty fun. It's got a great new open world, great new movement and decent combat that didn't really click for me. But the biggest problems to me were just the story, not being quite as good as the original Spider-Man, and also this game was way, way buggier than I remember the initial Spider-Man being. I remember it being a little buggy, but this was really buggy. And a lot of little plot holes in the story that I noticed playing through this game, which I don't remember noticing when playing Spider-Man, which is a game I replayed earlier this year. So I feel like if there had been major plot holes or issues with the plot, then I would have noticed that when I played through it earlier this year. But I didn't, and now I've played this and am wondering maybe I missed something. But still, one of the better games to come out for PS5 in the last year. Probably worth a pickup, especially if you enjoyed the original Spider-Man. NBA 2K21. I got nothing. I mean, I got it because it was cheap and I wanted more multiplayer games just in case someone wanted to come over. But the fact that it's 150 gigabytes required. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. I don't know why sports games need to be this massive nowadays. I just want to plug it into my system for a quick round or two of basketball in case one of the boys is interested. But it is not worth reserving 150 gigabytes on my PS5 for. I mean, I just don't have that much fun with these games. So, yep, just a cheap pickup for me. That's really all it was. Puyo Puyo Tetris 2, a game I picked up for more or less the same reasons. I wanted more multiplayer experiences. I still haven't experienced this one much either, but at least it is much, much better. And it's only requiring 2 gigabytes, so that's far, far superior to NBA in my opinion. It's a much better game. I mean, the original Puyo Puyo Tetris was great. It was super fun. It was a great Puyo Puyo game and a great Tetris game. Just a solid 2-in-1. And, if you like both, it's great. If you like just Tetris or just Puyo Puyo, it's still great. And this is just more great, It's a very solid puzzle game. I think it's worth picking up if you have the opportunity. So, yeah, do recommend. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. This is the other game that was included in my bundle of PS5 games when I got my PS5, and it was also the first fully exclusive title for the PS5. So there's that. At least when compared to Miles Morales, this did feel like a definite step up over the 2016 Ratchet & Clank entry. So I will give it that. However, it wasn't like a wow, I need to have a PS5 to play this game. It wasn't like that kind of experience for me. Still really fun. Absolutely loved this game. It's a great story, great combat, just a very visually impressive game. I had a blast playing it and played through it again earlier this year and had a blast on the second go around as well. So I do highly recommend this game. Especially now that it's, the price has gone down a little bit, maybe a little cheaper, maybe a little easier to find a good deal on it. So, yeah, I do recommend picking it up, but it wasn't like the system seller that I think, PlayStation might have hoped it would have been. It's just a very solid exclusive, in my opinion. Scarlet Nexus. The hell is this? I have genuinely no idea what this game is. I didn't even realize it was an anime game until after I picked it up and, because this doesn't really imply anime and the cover doesn't really imply anime, or the spine at least, but I guess it's an anime game. Defeat the Others. Ooh. I think what's more noteworthy about this game is GameStop was doing the 75% off a new game sale, which came out, a couple months ago. So I decided to scoop this up because, 75% off. It's a $5 PS5 game. I gotta have it. Except when I went to go ring it up, this was the last copy on the shelf. So they just stuck a disc inside the shelf copy and then put that in this little plastic bag. So now it's sealed. So yeah, I have a pre-owned new video game from GameStop. What an absolutely magical place. Sonic Frontiers, this is another one I picked up over the last year, And like I said in the tier list video, I think it's an interesting little experiment to see if Sonic can work in an open world. I don't know if it's the best experiment. It's got a lot of kind of a mixed personality, a little bit of a multiple personality disorder going on in the game. It's got that mid 2000s Sonic funk, edgy, cool punk band, that sort of thing, that phase that Sonic went through that's re-emerging here, or at least maybe it never went away. I don't really know. I'm not a Sonic guy. That mixed with generic open world, mixed with, classic 2D platformer. It's kind of a mess of a game, but I will admit, even though I don't think it's great, I don't think it's a phenomenal product, at the very least, I do think Sonic can work in an open world. I think that is what this game proved to me. So, in that perspective, it's pretty cool. It's a cool game to have. It's the prototype for open world Sonic. That's kind of neat. Beyond that, yeah, not really worth much to me. And finally, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. It's just a straight port of the PS4 game. There's really not much going on here beyond that. I wasn't really a fan of it when I played it the first time. I mean, it's not as glitchy as it was when it initially released, so at least there's that, but it really didn't grab me. It wasn't much story going on. It wasn't really anything to the combat or exploration. It was kind of just a very good-looking Star Wars game, but I didn't really see much to it beyond that. It was kind of just a whatever title, and I didn't really have any particular hype going into the Jedi Survivor game that released this past year. So I'll probably get around to that title eventually, probably when the price drops a little bit more. But yeah, to me, this is kind of a whatever title, and I imagine the next game will probably have the same impression on me. The PS4 collection is what has grown the most over the last couple of years, starting with the Assassin's Creed games, Origins and Odyssey. I've only played Origins at this point. It's the first of the revised formula Assassin's Creed games, and I thought it was okay. I liked a lot of the changes it made, but overall, it wasn't like a super compelling play to me. I think the story was not great, and it kind of just dragged on and on and on. And so I haven't really felt much temptation to come back to this at any point, nor have I felt a whole lot of, or have I been compelled to really play Odyssey all that much. I think they're fun in small doses, but generally have kind of fallen off the Assassin's Creed games over the years. I really liked some of the earlier ones. When I first got into Assassin's Creed, I really enjoyed the Ezio trilogy, but we'll get to that more later on. Bloodborne, of the Souls games I own, it is the only one that I have not played yet. But I've heard good things about it. I've heard good things about it. The Souls people that I have talked to seem to say that this is possibly the best of the Souls games. I've heard it's one of the hardest ones, and it's certainly got one of the most unique visual styles with its kind of Lovecraftian, Gothic, Victorian, whatever vibe it's got going on there. But it looks pretty fun, and I'd like to dabble in it a little bit sometime soon, so seems cool enough. Call of Duty Modern Warfare, this is the reboot for PS4. Obviously, Modern Warfare is a classic series, and this seemed to be a pretty solid return to form. Most people seem to really like this game, or at least the multiplayer for it. The campaign seems solid enough, so I mean, I guess it has that going for it, but really, you're playing Call of Duty for the multiplayer, and as far as that goes, I've never really been a big Call of Duty player. I'm not great at first-person shooters, but this seems pretty solid, so. Dark Souls 3 was my first Souls game. I dabbled in it a little bit on my former roommate's PlayStation, and yeah, it was a solid introduction to the Dark Souls series. I haven't played a whole lot of it, but what I did play was really fun, and pretty much everything that I'd heard about Dark Souls up to that point was proven true with this game. Very fun, very satisfying, but difficult combat. difficult enemies, but great boss designs, great atmosphere, great visuals. Overall, just a very solid game worthy of being included in just about anyone's library. So yeah, give at least one of the Souls games a shot. Depending on your taste of environment, of genre. There's a couple different ones that could best suit your preferences. Doug Flutie's Maximum Football 2019. I did a whole video on this last year, and it's an interesting title. We'll put it that way. It was an attempt by a Canadian indie team to create an alternative to Madden. Not a very good attempt. It's very buggy. It's not very well made, but I like this game. It's kind of goofy. It's kind of charming. It's full of bullshit. It's very nonsensical in a lot of the decisions it makes, but I had a good time playing it. It's not something I would highly recommend. Like, oh, you have to have this game in your collection. But I have a weird propensity for weirder titles like this, just random ass obscure games. So it holds a special place in my heart. I do have some feelings for Maximum Football. Also, I have no idea how they got the Doug Flutie branding on that. It baffles me to this day. Dragon Quest XI: Echoes of an Elusive Age. I was hoping to get this version on the Switch, the Definitive Edition S, whatever it's called, or Elusive Age S Definitive Edition. Long titled edition really is what it is. But yeah, I've heard good things about this game. I mean, Dragon Quest is pretty much the mother of all RPGs. Maybe Final Fantasy has something to say about that, but this is, from what I know, a pretty well-liked entry in the series. It's got great visuals, lovely art style, great characters. Most people seem to really like this game. I haven't given it a try, but it seems pretty fun. As someone who is kind of trying to get into RPGs, I've heard from a lot of non-RPG fans, at least people you see on YouTube, that this is a pretty fun game, even if you're not a super into RPGs. So I'll give it a try. I'll give it a shot. It seems very very traditional JRPG, very anime, but I'll give it a shot. I do like the Akira Toriyama art style, so it's definitely got a high priority on my on my backlog. Fallout 4, probably the last truly loved or great Fallout game. I mean, Fallout 76 seems to be still having pretty mixed opinions, so I guess there's that going for it. I haven't actually played any of the Bethesda open world games. That's a bit of a shame of mine, but I'll get to it eventually. I guess just the atmosphere doesn't appeal to me as much as other games, so it doesn't really have as much of a draw to me as some other titles in my collection on my backlog, but I'd like to give it a shot. I think I'll definitely give Skyrim a try whenever I pick up a copy of that. I mean, of the Bethesda open world games, that's what seems the most compelling and interesting to me, at least. But yeah, Fallout 4 is I feel like generally pretty well liked. Maybe not as revolutionary for the series as 3 or New Vegas, but I feel like people still really like Fallout 4. And I will certainly be giving it a try eventually. FIA European Truck Racing Championship. The hell is this? So this is one of the games I picked up while I was in Europe. I found it at a French used game store for, it was on occasion for 20 euros, more or less. So I picked it up. Primarily bought it because I am 99% sure this game is not sold in the US, or at least not physically. So I feel like I had to pick it up just because I'd never seen it before. But also I like racing games, and this is a more niche racing game. I mean, truck racing is really only a thing in Europe, to my knowledge. It doesn't really have much of a strong fandom in the United States, but it seems kind of cool, kind of interesting. Actually kind of reminds me of like NASCAR Heat in both its presentation style and just the little quirks of gameplay, the physics, that sort of thing. So not that that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just kind of a weird racing game title that I happen to have. It's not really anything super special. Final Fantasy 15 Deluxe Edition is really the only steelbook I have in my collection, which is kind of cool. It's also hands down one of the best deals I've ever gotten at GameStop. I found a copy of the launch edition of this game at my local GameStop. It was on sale for like $5. So I went to pick it up because I had not yet played Final Fantasy 15 and I wanted to have it in my collection. Except they didn't have any more copies of Final Fantasy 15 Launch Edition. So the cashier gave me Final Fantasy 15 Deluxe Edition, which is like a $30 game. And I only paid the price for the launch edition. So I got like a $30 game for $5, which is frankly a steal. I mean, aside from the steelbook and the plastic sleeve, it comes with a movie, like a full feature-length film, Kingsglaive, which acts as a prequel to the Final Fantasy 15 story. So I mean, that's certainly something. I mean, I find it wild that they made a full feature-length CGI film or CG movie, rated PG-13, 115 minutes. Like it's a proper film, it's a proper movie, and they made it solely as a prequel for Final Fantasy 15, which I don't know. I find that kind of wild. I'm sure it's not going to be for everyone. I don't feel like the movie got very great reviews based on what I've seen, but whatever. It's kind of a weird thing to have, and it's, it spices up the shelf. It's a fun thing to have in the collection. God of War for PS4, the reboot, or I don't know if this is considered God of War 4, since it's sort of a reboot, but also a sequel to the original God of War trilogy. I don't know how that works, but regardless, this is a fun game. I mean, this is hands down one of my favorite PS4 games. It's got a phenomenal story, outstanding combat, great world, great visuals. I absolutely loved playing through this game. And I love the sequel as well. I don't have Ragnarok physically in my collection, but I hope to get it soon. Because it was a pretty fun experience, as was God of War. This is absolutely one of the must-haves for PlayStation 4. I think this is probably the first game people should pick up and play if you're getting a PS4 or trying to collect for PS4. Whoever may be doing that in this day and age. Gran Turismo Sport, it's the racing game for PS4. I mean, really more of the same for GT7. I feel like it was pretty well received. It focused, as I understand, more on like online multiplayer and the competition aspect, the head-to-head competition of Gran Turismo and sim racing, which was really cool to see. And I still think Gran Turismo Sport was pretty well received despite that change in direction. But, it's more of the same from GT7. You already know if you're into this game, regardless of whether you've played it or not. We have the Gravity Rush games, both Gravity Rush 2 and Gravity Days Remastered. Gravity Rush is just the name over in North America, and I don't know what the name is in Europe. The reason I have Gravity Days, the Japanese copy of the game, is because the North American copy is actually very difficult to find. It's quite rare. For a PS4 title, and because of that, it's quite expensive. So it's actually much easier and much cheaper to find a Japanese copy of the game. That's the story behind my sole Japanese game in the collection. But it's pretty cool to have. I actually quite like having this on the shelf. It's a neat little thing to spice things up in the collection. I haven't played either of these games. They're both relatively rare, so I guess they're the jewels of my PS4 collection. Ooh. But I've heard they're pretty fun. I would like to give them a try before too long. Horizon Zero Dawn is one I reviewed for the most recent tier list, and it was not a game that particularly impressed me all that much. I mean, beyond the phenomenal atmosphere, world, visuals, it's just another open world game. I didn't really see why so many people went absolutely crazy for it. No, it is not something really special. It's not all that captivating. It is a beautiful world, but that's about all I can say about it. It's just an open world game. I don't really know. I mean, if you are into this game, all credit to you. I'm happy for you, but I really didn't find as much to be impressed about with Horizon Zero Dawn as I would have liked, and as would be implied from, I think, the review scores. So, I mean, a lot of people would probably consider it one of the must-have titles for PS4. It's at very least one of the defining titles for PS4. It is one of the defining new IPs that came out for PS4, so I will give it that. But beyond that, though, it's just, it didn't really do much for me. Immortals Phoenix Rising is a Ubisoft's attempt at a Breath of the Wild clone, borrowing heavily from Greek mythology. I guess it's to appeal to all the kids who grew up with the Percy Jackson series. But yeah, I don't think I've heard particularly like rave reviews for this game. It just kind of seems to lack personality from what I've heard. I'll probably give it a try this year, just to say that I have played it. But yeah, it doesn't really seem like all that impressive of a title to me. It very much just feels like a game that only released because Breath of the Wild got popular and everyone was trying to copy its gameplay quirks and gimmicks and that sort of thing. Yeah, not really all that impressive of a reputation, I guess, this game has. Jump Force was released to celebrate the 40th, 50th anniversary of Shonen Jump manga and comics. I mean, I feel like the idea of a Shonen Jump inspired crossover fighting game is awesome. I think that's a really cool idea. The problem is this game kind of sucks. It was not particularly well received. The fighting wasn't all that great. The story wasn't all that great. I don't know. Great concept, and it was an awesome idea for an anniversary title, but yeah, not great execution. It did not get great reviews. Knack, you gotta have a copy of Knack in the collection. This was one of the PS4's big, I guess, early titles or launch titles. I guess was supposed to be a big technical showcase, a visual showcase for the power of the PS4. All these little objects flying around and being visually distracting, lots of particle effects, that sort of thing. It's a platformer with de-emphasized jumping, which is to say it's like Skylanders, except you can't change your character, so it's yeah, kind of boring. The Last of Us Remastered, another one of the must-have titles for PS4 in my opinion. I mean, obviously it was initially a PS3 game, but it was so warmly received that I don't feel like they could have just not done a PS4 version, especially since the PS4 wasn't backwards compatible with the PS3. But it's a pretty solid remaster, I think. It's got the Left Behind DLC. It's very well made, you know. It's got nice just a little bit of a graphical buff over the PS3, I think. And it's still The Last of Us, you know. I haven't played the PS3 version, so I can't say for sure, like, oh, this is the definitive way to play this game, but I feel like, personally, I feel like it is. Spider-Man, this is one of my initial favorites on the PS4, and of the Spider-Man games, this is definitely my favorite. I think it's got the best story. I quite like the combat, the initial introduction to the world of Spider-Man's Manhattan, you know, collectibles, side missions, that sort of thing. I feel like since it was the first to do it, and also it having the best story of the three games, in my opinion, it's just the one I personally prefer. I replayed it earlier this year and still had a blast playing through it. I don't know if the sequels have innovated on this formula as much as I would like them to, but it's a very solid game. You know, highly recommend. Another must-have title for the PS4 in my opinion. Madden 20. I picked this up as a prop for the Doug Flutie video, and have not put it in and played it whatsoever. I mean, I've played a little bit of the newer Madden games, but I feel like I should have brought this up with NBA 2K21. I'm not really a sports game guy. I mean, I like a lot of sports games, you know. They're great for multiplayer. You know, if there was always a game that whenever I had friends over, we would pop in like a Madden or a FIFA or an NBA 2K and, you know, just dick around for a little bit. it was a fun little local multiplayer game that I liked to have on hand. But it's not something I ever felt the need to buy like every single one whenever the new one releases. I don't get that much enjoyment out of it. I don't play it competitively, so I mean, if that does describe you, then good for you, but I am more than happy to have just one on hand for any given console. And especially now that they're requiring close to, I don't know, 50 gigabytes per game. That's just a lot of space that these things are taking up on your system. So I don't know. It's not really the pop in and play kind of multiplayer game that it used to be. I don't feel like I want to have 125 gigabytes or 50 gigabytes reserved on my system at all times for a game that might get played whenever friends come over. It's just, I'm not that crazy over these things. Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, was, I believe, the last of the true Metal Gear Solid games. And it was a pretty solid way for the series to go out, I think. Pretty open-ended, open-world game. Lots to do, lots to explore, lots to experiment with, which is very cool to see. Kind of ignites that same Breath of the Wild style fun, the joy of experimentation and seeing, creative ways in which you can solve problems and conduct missions. It was one of the big early titles for PS4. One of the early must-have games, I guess. And it's only 27 gigabytes, so I'm a little more open to having this reserved on my console compared to Madden. NASCAR Heat 5. This is very much just another game that I bought solely to have a multiplayer game to play on my console whenever it was necessary. I think I had, at this point, Gran Turismo was my only other racing game on the system, and I didn't have many multiplayer games for my PS4, PS5, I guess. So I picked this up because it was cheap and it was just a simple, fun racing game, I guess, for the people who want simple, fun racing games. It's kind of like I said with FIA European Truck Racing, it's very similar in that it's got a lot of its own quirks. It's not going to be the same sim racer, arcade racer that Forza and Gran Turismo are going to be. And it's not going to appeal to a larger audience because it's not super arcadey as well, but it's fun. It's a fun game. I think you can justify playing this with either a wheel or a controller. So yeah, it's a fun time. It's got its own quirks, little characteristics, presentation, style. So it's fun, but yeah. Okami HD is one I've dabbled in a little bit. I gave it a try last year just to see if I could stream from the PS5. Didn't turn out so well, but it did give me a little sampler of Okami HD, and this game is quite beautiful. It's got a lovely kind of painted art style, and is really just a game focusing on the beauty of Japanese art and culture and mythology. And it's really just an overall lovely experience. I really liked what little I did play, and will probably go back to giving it a try before too long. I would definitely like to have this one on the end of year tier list. One Piece World Seeker is yeah, I do read some manga, watch some anime, and One Piece was my first, so it's always a series I've had a bit of an affinity for. Odyssey came out last year, and that seems like a solid enough time, but World Seeker is another, big open world One Piece game, and I think that's kind of cool, kind of exciting. I think open world is probably a genre that works well for One Piece. It's a series all about adventure and exploration and freedom, and so an open world game I feel like really kind of embodies that. So these seem solid enough titles, but I don't think they're going to appeal to anyone who's not already a One Piece fan, or it's just not going to turn you into a One Piece fan, anything like that. So, yeah, I don't think it's anything crazy. It's just something for really for me. Now, Persona 5, on the other hand. This is genuinely my favorite game on the PS4 that I have yet played. I mean, I love it so much that I bought Persona 5 after already having owned and played through Royal. It's just that good. I mean, yes, it's anime. Yes, it's a bit strange at times, but it's so flashy. It's got such phenomenal presentation, such a great story, such great combat. It genuinely feels like I'm playing through a series of a TV show. Definitely experience this. It's got presentation like you wouldn't believe. This is the game for PS4. I love it. I love it so much. This is what turned me into an RPG guy. The Ratchet and Clank reboot, another one of the first titles I got for PS4, just so I could play this before playing Rift Apart. But yeah, this is quite solid. It's pretty fun. It's a solid. I don't know. It's just a solid experience. It's not like anything crazy or anything like that. I thought it was fun. I didn't fall in love with it like some people did, but I had a good time playing through Ratchet and Clank. I thought it was a solid return to form. It got me interested in some of the older Ratchet and Clank games that I missed out on. So I've only heard good things about those. So I'll give those a try eventually. A great way to be introduced to Ratchet and Clank, I feel. We've got Rhyme. I don't know anything about this game. I mean, I bought this solely because I had some extra money in my wallet one day, and this game looked kind of interesting. It's got kind of a cool art style, and you know, the front of the box kind of appealed to me. That's really the only reasons I bought it. I have no idea what this game is about, no idea what kind of genre it is, but it seems like a cool little adventure game. Art style kind of reminds me of Tunic, games like Cocoon, that sort of thing. Kind of simpler, you know, cell shaded, but it looks really good. It looks super beautifully detailed. I think that's just what caught my eye about it. It looks really good. Sega Genesis Classics. This is just a pretty solid collection of Sega Genesis games. Not the wildest thing out there. Not as cool as Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection for the 360 PS3. But it's a pretty solid Sega Genesis compilation game. You're getting a lot of the essential Genesis games all in one. Very solid package. I picked it up just so I would have a way to experience some of those early Genesis games without actually having to buy a Genesis or one of those like aftermarket consoles that plays like 3 different types of games. You know, I'm talking about Retron 3, that sort of thing. I would like to get one of those eventually, or maybe just a Genesis outright, but I feel like this is a pretty solid introduction to the Genesis library and what it has to offer. So, yeah. We've got EA and DICE's new Star Wars Battlefront games. And I know a lot of people don't like these. I mean, Battlefront 2 was pretty notorious when it first came out. For being just the most money-hungry game you could possibly imagine. So horrific that it sparked a new international law on microtransactions in video games. But I do have a soft spot in my heart for Star Wars Battlefront. I actually really liked this EA DICE Star Wars Battlefront. I thought it was a really fun game. I thought it had great online multiplayer. I found the single player, missions and just single player skirmishes. I thought those were super fun to play over and over and over again. I thought it had super addicting combat, great visuals. I thought it was just a really fun game. And then I've had my fun with Battlefront 2 as well. I've shown a little bit of it on my channel. I think they were actually kind of building it up into a pretty solid game. Until Battlefield 2042 came out and they got announced and they decided to cut support from it and Battlefield 5 entirely, which is a shame because I feel like those were being built into 2 very solid games. But yeah, I've had my fun with these games. I know at least Battlefront 2 servers are still up. I don't know about original EA DICE Battlefront, but these are solid games. You can pick them up for real cheap, have some good Star Wars oriented multiplayer fun with them. Yeah, not bad pickups. Tetris Effect Connected. is one of my most recent pickups for really just in general for my collection. I bought it because I recently got a PSVR 2 set, which is really cool. And there's only so much I can do with Gran Turismo 7 and the demo for Puzzling Places. So I bought this as a way to, just as an extra game to play on my PSVR. I think it's a pretty solid game. You know, Tetris Effect Connected was released as a way to give PS4, I guess console players, people who didn't have VR kits, a way to play this game since it was initially released in VR. And I think it's a very solid version of Tetris Effect. However, doesn't hold a candle to VR. I mean, this game is genuinely a wild experience to have in VR. I highly recommend it. If you've got a VR kit, I feel like you need to find a copy of this game. The presentation is so nice. It's so beautiful, so zen. It's so wonderful to look at and play and just experience, to feel this game. It's great. I highly recommend. Moving on to shelf number 2, we've got the Tomb Raider games, both Tomb Raider Definitive Edition and Rise of the Tomb Raider 20 Year Celebration Edition. I don't have Shadow of the Tomb Raider. That's the one I'm missing so far, but I've heard good things about Tomb Raider. I mean, beyond it just being a kind of a multi-platform Uncharted game. Tomb Raider Definitive Edition was noteworthy just because I believe it was the first of these Definitive Edition titles, a way to port the 360 game over, or I guess the 360 PS3 game over into the 8th generation of games, in-game systems, and kind of kickstarted the madness that we saw in Gen 8. And are really seeing again in Gen 9. But they seem like fun games. Rise of the Tomb Raider 20 Year Celebration is not like a particularly wild or rare edition of the game or anything like that. But it's cool. It's got this, it comes in this little journal case with the plastic sleeve. It's got like some fan art, some concept art. Just ignore what fell out there. You know, it's got some cool stuff, and then the disc over here. So, yeah, I mean, it's a cool enough edition of the game. Not anything to go crazy over though. But yeah, solid adventure exploration games in kind of the same style of Uncharted, just in, you know, with its own quirks and gameplay gimmicks. So yeah, we have the Uncharted games, which I have now played all of in at least some capacity or some version of. We've got the original PS3 trilogy on as part of the Nathan Drake collection, and then we've got Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, and then the standalone DLC, The Lost Legacy, on physical versions, both of which are part of the Legacy of Thieves collection, which has released for PS5. I don't get the Legacy of Thieves collection. You can get both of these together for $30, if that. Whereas the Legacy of Thieves collection is like an easy 60 to 70. So why you would pay that extra money for games that still look pretty damn good? I don't get it. I don't see why you do that. The fact that you can play all the Uncharted games on PS4 is really cool. I think these are all solid enough games. I think you know, The Lost Legacy is maybe the one that is least required for your collection, but 4 and the Nathan Drake collection are absolutely very solid pickups, and I do highly recommend them. Watch Dogs was supposed to be the big, like, must-have Ubisoft title for the 8th generation of home consoles, and then it got released on the PS3 and Xbox 360, so there's that. I mean, it's a Ubisoft open world game. It's you probably already know what to expect just from me saying that, don't you? So yeah. Also, what kind of tagline is 60 minutes of exclusive gameplay? Why 60 minutes? That just feels like such a stupid exclusive feature to have. The Witcher 3 is another one I've heard kind of mixed things about. I know it had a very rough launch. It was not a great look for CD Projekt Red, but I know they shaped up and got it into good shape over the years, kind of like what they've done for Cyberpunk 2077. Big open world, though I've heard it's got kind of that similar generic open world game feel to it. So hopefully I find myself on the more I like this game end of the Witcher 3 spectrum. I mean, it seems like a cool atmosphere. The Witcher 3 always seemed like a really interesting environment and storytelling world, I guess. So I'd be interested in giving this game a try. And then to round out the PS4 collection, we've got the Wolfenstein games, the New Order, and then the Wolfenstein 2, the New Colossus. These new Wolfenstein games are definitely a departure from Wolfenstein in the past. They've got a lot of their own personality, a lot of their own character. That is to say, it's very gory, but it's not necessarily bad. I mean, if you're okay with the gore, the intensity of the newer, Wolfenstein games, of Bethesda's shooters, then you might find a lot to like in Wolfenstein. I mean, it's certainly got great physics, great gunplay. I did like that a lot in the New Order. Still haven't played the New Colossus yet, but I'm expecting really more of the same. But yeah, solid titles for the right audience, for the right demographic. It's not going to be for everyone though. And finally, to round things out for the PlayStation series of systems, we've got Madden 13 for the PS Vita. Now, you may be wondering, Dray, do you own a PS Vita? And that is an excellent question, and the answer is no. But I would like to. The PlayStation portable line of systems with the PSP and the PS Vita have always been kind of an enigma to me. I don't really know anything about them. Other than it was really the only competition that Nintendo has ever had for portable systems, only serious competition, and even then it wasn't really like, they were really digging into the Nintendo market, Handheld consoles is Nintendo's bread and butter. So yeah, I would like to learn more about the PSP line of systems. And then the other reason I want to own a Vita is because of the cases. I mean, look at it. This is the most adorable case I have ever seen in my life. I mean, it's literally just a miniature PS4 box. It's so cute. It is so beautifully designed. I think seeing collections of these cases is so cool. There's something so beautiful about a full PS Vita collection. Also, these games are pretty hard to find. The fact that I managed to find this one at my local GameStop is mind-blowing to me. But it was in solid condition, and I got it for a decent price. Vita games are getting pretty up there in terms of price. I mean, this is Madden, but it's worth $30, which is unheard of. So yeah, I gotta start collecting Vita games now, getting good deals when I can find them, before I feel like I actually get a Vita. If I wait till I get a Vita, then I feel like I'm gonna miss out on too many opportunities to get Vita games. But yeah, I love looking at this case. It's just such a marvel. It's so beautiful. It's so adorable. I love it. Moving on to the Nintendo section of the collection, we're gonna keep up the handheld talk by moving on to the 3DS library. Now, 3DS is not a system that I ever got super into when I was younger. I mean, it's a system that I had for a good couple years and was playing for a good couple years alongside my 360, pretty much up until I got my computer and started doing YouTube videos. But it's not something I was like super into, but I had a good few games that I had a good time on, and it was always something fun to play on road trips. It just wasn't the all-purpose entertainment machine that my DS was for me when I was younger. But to kick things off, FIFA 13 was one of my main go-tos for this console. For not really being a big sports game guy, I definitely played a lot of FIFA and the I don't know, build your own team mode, the manager mode, I guess like street soccer, the street soccer modes, things like that. I found those pretty fun. It was a little gimmicky with like the 3DS feature where you turn the slider up and wow, the players look like they're popping out of the screen. It's crazy. Other than that, I mean, it's just a pretty standard FIFA game for the 3DS. It's probably about what you'd expect it to be. Not anything insane, but a game that I had a good bit of fun with. Mario Kart 7, for being such a big Mario Kart fan growing up, I actually did not pick this up until just the other year. I think last year or the year before. It was always one of the big new Mario Karts that I missed out on. and I think it's okay. Maybe the fact that I didn't really play it when I was younger is kind of hampering my opinion of it, but I didn't think it was anything crazy. I mean, it controls well. It's got a few solid courses. It's got the kart customization, underwater segments, but those make their return in later Mario Karts. I don't know. I didn't feel like it was like like one of the most phenomenal entries in the series. It just felt like kind of like just another pretty standard Mario Kart experience, and more or less what I would expect from the 3DS. I mean, it looks pretty good. And it controls really well, and it's fun enough, but it wasn't like the groundbreaking title that I feel like DS or Wii or Mario Kart 8 like those were. I feel like those were much better experiences that I had a lot more fun with. New Super Mario Bros. 2. I think this was the first game that I got for this system, and it was always one of my guilty pleasures. The new Super Mario Bros. Series definitely went kind of downhill as the series progressed through Wii and then into 2 and then into U. It was just clearly less and less creative. But I still had a good time with 2. Just collecting as many coins as you could. That was pretty fun. That was pretty satisfying to do. All the emphasis on coins, even though there wasn't really a point with the gameplay. But it was fun. It had fun level design. It was just a good game to go back to and play and replay over and over again. See what you could see how much you could accomplish, get done. So yeah, just a solid kind of guilty pleasure platformer. Nothing special, but one I had fun with regardless. Now this is where I got my money's worth out of this system. The Pokemon games. We'll do all of them at once, just for efficiency's sake. But I've for a while I was not into Pokemon. I started playing Pokemon with Gen 4 with Platinum on the DS, and then I missed out on Gen 5. Just completely skipped over it. Had no interest in Pokemon for a while, and then finally saw gameplay of Pokemon Y again, and I thought it looked really cool. So after I got my 3DS, I picked up a copy of Pokemon Y, and I have bought every major, every mainline Pokemon game since. I've got Alpha Sapphire, I've got Sun, I've got Ultra Moon, so I've made sure to purchase at least one of every mainline Pokemon title since. Y holds a pretty special place in my heart just for being the game that got me back into Pokemon. I always have very fond memories of playing this game, as well as Alpha Sapphire. I think this is a very solid generation for Pokemon. The leap into 3D, and I think it was a solid generation. Wasn't as big into the 7th gen, the Sun and Ultra Moon, as I would have liked to have been. They were cool games. I remember covering news for them on my channel long time ago, but for the most part, I don't think they were anything crazy. They were just very solid Pokemon titles. And then there's Rumble Blast, which is kind of just a nonsensical title. I bought this because I remember playing a lot of Pokemon Rumble on friends' Wii's. I remember going over to Davis's house and playing Pokemon Rumble. That was just one of the games I remember playing at his house. It's not particularly, complex or deep. You play as very low poly Pokemon models and you beat up other Pokemon models. It's not very complex. It's arguably not even very good, but I found some simple satisfaction in taking on all these Pokemon, watching the health bar drain away, collecting these big fat coins as collectibles. There was just something kind of fun and satisfying about that. So yeah, probably the worst Pokemon title, critically speaking, that I own, but I still had had a good time with it, and it holds just as special of a place in my heart as any of the mainline entries. Super Mario 3D Land. This is another one of the big early titles that I got on the 3DS. It was a pretty solid platformer. It was the first of this this new Formula 3D Mario that we see in 3D World on the Wii U, and I think it's pretty good. It's taking more traditional Mario 2D platforming and making it 3D as opposed to the open world style games that we see with Sunshine or Galaxy, the open-ended levels. This feels more like a traditional Mario platformer. And I think it's pretty cool. It's got shorter but better stages for handheld play. I think it's a very well-designed game, not necessarily like the most deserving of a sequel like what we got on Wii U, but it was a solid title for what it was. And it, alongside Mario Kart 7, helped boost 3DS sales. So it's a very noteworthy game in that regard, even though after playing it, there's really not much to say about it. It's just a very solid Mario 3D platforming title for handheld. It's exactly what the handheld needed, in my opinion. And finally, Super Smash Bros. For 3DS. I'm sure this is the title that many were very, very excited for. Finally getting Smash Bros. On the 3DS. And after playing it for a little bit of middle school, I think it's one of the weakest entries. I'm not saying it's like a bad game or anything. I certainly had my fun with Smash Bros. For 3DS, and I remember being very excited to get Smash Bros. For 3DS, playing Smash Bros. On the go. But ultimately, this is not a game that I had just all that much fun with. It wasn't a game that I got super into. It was kind of just a Smash Brothers for when I was, on the road and craving some computer matches or something like that. If I was going to play Smash Brothers at home, I didn't have a Wii U, so I would be more than happy to just fire a brawl or something like that. Not my preferred Smash Brothers game. I can respect it for being, Smash Brothers on the go. That's pretty cool, but not my favorite title in the series. Now we've got my Nintendo DS games. Now this is a console I was super into when I was younger. This was probably my first console that I owned new. It was like my birthday present back in 2007 or something like that. And so for a while there, this was my only home console. I absolutely loved it. I played this at home on the go pretty much whenever I wanted to play video games. This was my go-to console. This was my video game machine, and everyone had one, so it was always easy to take one over to friends' houses or parties, ride the school bus with your DS and play games with your friends. It was just a great console and a great system to have when you were growing up. I have very fond memories of it. So for my cased DS games, we've got Cooking Mama, which is a very everyone knows what Cooking Mama is. It's a fun mini game based or micro game based cooking game. It can sort of teach you how to cook, I suppose. I always remember being, having a good time with this game. This was like more so a game that my sisters played on their DSs. But I always had a good time with this game, and it's an all-time classic. Do love me some Cooking Mama. The Lego Star Wars games, I was way into these when I was younger, and really just Star Wars and anything Lego. And so combining the two, it only makes sense. Star Wars 3 was based on the first couple of seasons of the Clone Wars TV series. It's okay enough, but the one I have the most fond memories of is definitely the complete saga. Just the first 6 movies adapted into Lego games. It's got the classic, no pupil eyes, the old Lego blasters. I think this is probably one of the peaks of the Lego Star Wars series. Maybe not this specific version of it on the 3DS or on the DS, but I would love to own other versions of this game because it is an all-time classic. It is one that a lot of kids have fond memories of. And it's absolutely one that I had a ton of fun with growing up. Little League World Series Baseball 2008. What a wacky little title. I feel like this is kind of up there with something like Backyard Sports or something like that. It's a sports game oriented towards kids. It's got some mini games in there. It's got some wonky motion controls and some big head looking characters. You've got to swipe the stylus across the bottom of the screen to swing your baseball bat and throw it to specific bases, that sort of thing. It was a game I was definitely really, really into when I was younger, even though it's really not anything special. you know, it's got a good amount of content, I guess. I remember it having a good amount of content, but I feel like most of that was just me playing it over and over and over again. So definitely a game I had my fun with, but I mean, you know, there's always going to be a few like whatever titles in a collection, and this is definitely one of the goofier ones. Madden 08 for the DS. I think this was one of the first games I remember getting for said DS, and I absolutely love it. I mean, this is it's just Madden. That said, though, I had such a great time with this game, doing quick play matches, 2-minute drill, paper football. I played this game over and over and over again, and it is probably the EA sports title that I played the most, or have played the most in my life. It's it's an all-time classic. I feel like everyone's got maybe at least some solid memory with at least one sports game. So even though I've never been the biggest sports game fan, I still really love Madden 08 for the DS specifically. It is one of my go-to I guess sports games. Beyond that, I don't really know what else to say. It's Madden. Mario Kart DS. Now this is a classic. To this day, I feel like this is possibly the best Mario Kart ever made. It's just it set a lot of standards for the Mario Kart series. 32 tracks, a lot of standard characters, the kart customization or choosing your karts, battle mode, mission mode, online multiplayer. There's a lot of great things that this Mario Kart included. It doesn't really skimp out on anything. It's just a very complete Mario Kart experience, and it looks decent enough for the time that it came out on. Early kind of 3D graphics. That was the first 3D handheld Mario Kart game. And it controls well enough, I guess, about as well as Double Dash or the home console equivalent. What I specifically remember about this game was the fact that in order to play local multiplayer, you only needed one copy of the game. As long as everyone else had DSs, then they could just play as Shy Guy. But yeah, they could all play. We could get up to 8 people together and do some races and battle mode. And it was such a good multiplayer game to have on the DS. It was really the multiplayer game to have on the DS. And I have so many great memories of playing Mario Kart DS. I feel like this was one of the go-tos we played at, like, I don't know, elementary school graduation. Whenever friends came over, this was what we did. We played Mario Kart DS. Absolutely iconic title, one of my all-time favorites. MX vs. ATV Untamed. In case Mario Kart DS didn't really scratch that racing itch for you, this is the main game that comes to mind when I think of THQ, who is, no longer in business as they used to be. But, it's kind of an off-road arena racing game. Bikes, ATVs, and various other things like these buggies and golf carts and, things like that. It was fun enough, I guess, as a kid, but really not anything special. I remember, being able to beat the first couple of stages pretty easily, and then not being able to advance past the third or fourth level in this game. So, but it is what it is. More Pokemon games, obviously. I think this is where a bulk of the value of my game collection comes from. Is the Pokemon games that I had when I was younger. I already mentioned Platinum as being my first Pokemon title, and so obviously it is of my DS games. It's the one I have the most fond memories of. I love Gen 4. I feel like it is to this day the best of all the Pokemon generations. Just absolutely iconic between Diamond and Pearl and this, and of course Pokemon Heart Gold, one of the more valuable games in my collection. I think it's currently around $150, so it's probably one or two in terms of value. But yeah, these were absolutely great games. I remember, I got this brand new. I got this from a friend in middle school because I had not yet experienced Pokemon Heart Gold. It was just something, my cousin had, and so that was how we played, local battles. He would put in Heart Gold and I would put in Platinum, and we would, we would duke it out in whatever, local online multiplayer lobbies we could. But I got this from my friend alongside my copy of Pokemon White. And this is how I first experienced Gen 5 for the first time, and I recognize that as a very solid generation. Some very solid games. I had a good time with Pokemon White. And then finally last year, I found a copy of Pokemon Black 2, and so I finally got to experience the sequels to Black and White for the first time. And I got a good portion of the way through the game. Didn't fully beat it. But I got, enough of an experience to kind of, figure out why people love this game as much as they do, and it's another very solid Pokemon game. It's a great follow-up to Black and White. I had a good time with it. I'll probably come back to it before too long. At least I hope to. But, it's a very solid Pokemon game. And overall, I'm quite happy with the Pokemon games I do have. I've always been, a big Pokemon kid. It was one of the big things to like when I was in elementary school. So, yeah, I do have some fond memories with these games. I know they're not for everyone. They're definitely kind of hard to get into if you didn't grow up with them. But, they're solid titles. They're pretty fun. And I had a good time with them when I was younger. So, round out the DS collection, we've also got the loose games. The games that I don't yet have cases for, though I'm working on it. I'm gonna plan on buying either browsing eBay or getting replacement cases from CustomGameCases.com, which is where I went to last year to get some replacement cases for some of the other loose games I own. But among these, we've got it's mostly just random things that don't deserve or warrant necessarily cases from a website like CustomGameCases.com. Things like Build-A-Bear Workshop, B-17 Fortress in the Sky. Cars is one I had a good time with. Had fairly fond memories of. A good mini game collection, I guess. Gardening Mama is not really one I ever got into, but trying to play up the Cooking Mama franchise name. Got a few others. Zuzu Pets is a franchise I continually forget existed until I open up this case of loose games. Hannah Montana, a show I remember watching a ton with my sisters when I was younger, so obviously that's an adventure game you have to have. Yoshi Touch and Go is not a very well-liked Yoshi game, but I remember having a good time with this in local multiplayer with my friends. And of course, Star Wars Battlefront, because I was a big fan of Star Wars Battlefront and its games when I was younger. And I bought this thinking that it was going to be a proper Star Wars Battlefront experience. And it was for the DS, so I don't really know how I got bamboozled there. But yeah, just a few more whatever titles that every DS collection I feel like has to have. It's so hard to find both DS and 3DS games, in the case nowadays. Having GameStop just continually throw away those cases or sell them to you loose, it makes it very hard to go out and motivate yourself to buy these games when you can't display them in an appealing manner. I don't want to have to just have this case full at all times, or have like a loose bag of DS or 3DS or GBA games just because I wanted to collect for these systems. I really hope more companies do custom game cases for these consoles, like CustomGameCases.com is doing. I think they're doing a great job. And I guess speaking of which, we'll round out the Nintendo handhelds with my couple of GBA games. The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past and Four Swords. This being the first GBA game that I got. I got this off of my cousin, and as you can see, I got the case from CustomGameCases.com. Doing good stuff. But yeah, this was my first Zelda title, Link to the Past, and it was never a title I could beat, just because I was probably a little too young when I first tried to beat it, but I got a good ways into the game, I guess. I know people recognize this as one of the all-time classics, so I will get around to beating it one day. Four Swords, I never played just because it needs to be multiplayer, which is kind of hard to do, to find 4 Game Boy Advances and hook them up. But at the very least, it's a cool little thing to have on this cartridge. To have two big Zelda games on the same cartridge is kind of cool. It's kind of crazy. Now, I could play those on my Nintendo DS. It does have the little Game Boy Advance slot on the bottom. But just to be safe, I did buy a Fire Red Game Boy Advance last year, just in case I wanted to start collecting some of the older Game Boy titles, just because these can play every Game Boy game, from the original all the way up through the Game Boy Advance. And when I bought it, it came with Backyard Football 2006. Now, I've played a little bit of this game, just because it did come with my GBA, so I wanted to get used to, playing on this system and figure out what this game was, because I do like some of the goofier Madden alternatives. And it's a fun little football game oriented towards kids. I know they've got the Backyard Baseball series as well, which uses a lot of the same characters, the same, kind of IPs and wonky controls. But, it's a fun little time. It's a little goofy, a little silly. Definitely targeted more towards kids, but it's a fun time, and I'm sure it's one that a lot of people have fond memories of. I can certainly see why. It would definitely be pretty addictive. It would definitely be a game I would play a lot of if I was a kid. Fun little title. Glad to have it included with my Game Boy Advance, and I guess it's another title I'm looking for a replacement case for. Moving on to the Switch, the hybrid, handheld home console thing, a way to transition from the handhelds into the later dedicated home consoles. Also the first console that I bought for myself with my own money. I guess you could say it's the first system that I kind of collected for, trying to build up my library while the Switch is still in production. I know it's probably going to be going out of production before too long. We're probably, if I had to guess, in the twilight years of the Switch's life. But it's been a great home console. It's been just a great machine to take on the go and play at home. And I've loved owning it. Starting things off, we got A Boy and His Blob by Limited Run Games. I own a couple Limited Run titles, and I'm quite fond of what they do. For those not familiar, Limited Run is a company based here in North Carolina, not far from where I live. They're located in Apex, I believe. And what they do is they make physical versions of otherwise digital-only titles, as the name suggests, in limited quantities. They also do things like, occasionally they do things like NES and Genesis titles, making modern versions of those games, which is really cool and not something you see a whole lot of. But they work, a lot with both smaller publishers and bigger publishers to bring their otherwise digital games to handheld and other home console systems in physical forms, which is really cool. I like that. I've always liked collecting physical games, and I think they do a great job of that. As for A Boy and His Blob itself, I really only got this because I very vividly remember reading an article about it in Game Informer magazine as a child. When I saw this for sale on their website, I recalled that memory, and I bought it immediately. That's really the only reason I bought it. I know it's a bit of a cult classic for the Wii, but I don't really know a whole lot about it other than it's a bit of a puzzle platformer. It's got pretty solid reviews. I'm looking forward to trying it before too long, but as you have probably figured out by this point, my backlog is pretty large, so I can't promise when I'll get to some of these titles, which is kind of unfortunate. But I'd rather purchase these games while I have the opportunity, especially if I know I want to play them, and then get around to them eventually. So yeah, it's gonna be a bit of a challenge conquering the backlog, but I'll get around to it. I'll be working on it. Animal Crossing New Horizons is a game that I guess is what got me through COVID. It kind of came out at the perfect time, right at the end of March, where COVID was kicking off, and I got sent home for online schooling. So this was a great game to plug in for an hour or two each day, and just hang around, mess around with the island, see what the villagers are up to. And it was definitely a game I played pretty much every day, nonstop, for a good few months. Eventually, my younger sister developed an interest in the game, and more or less requisitioned it for herself. But I'm not too upset about it. I got another copy for myself, and she still plays it to this day. I mean, it's a solid Animal Crossing title. Pretty fun. I know a lot of people weren't happy about it because it was missing a lot of content at launch, and slowly got updates over the course of the next year for things that should have been available at launch, and then just suddenly stopped getting updates altogether. I don't know what that was about, but definitely a title that I had my fun with. It was my first Animal Crossing title, and I did quite like it. I had a good time with it, and it was a great introduction to the series, even if it wasn't the best Animal Crossing title. It was still a great time, and I think a lot of people had a good time with it, especially it being kind of the right game to release during those COVID years. So yeah, very fun time. The Castlevania Advance Collection, another one by Limited Run, and as you can see, I've got this pretty recently because I haven't even opened it yet. But this is a solid collection of 3 of the GBA Castlevania games. We got Circle of the Moon, Harmony of Dissonance, and Aria of Sorrow, as well as Dracula X for the Super Nintendo, I believe. So interesting little collection of Castlevania games. I've never played a whole lot of Castlevania or any of the Metroidvanias. I've played a bit of Dread, Metroid Dread when that first came out, and that was fun. So I feel like this is maybe another solid way to get introduced to the Castlevania games, Metroidvania genre, and some of the more classical Castlevania style games. I know there was a move towards 3D when the Nintendo 64 came out, because everything wanted to be 3D when Nintendo 64 came out. But from what I've heard, this is a very solid little collection of games, and I'm happy to own it physically. So yeah. Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics. Right as Animal Crossing was starting to get old, this game came out and is the other big COVID game for me. I played an absolute ton of bowling, of golf, of Hanafuda. Just a great, awesome minigame, board game, sports game collection. And it's super fun to play for local multiplayer. It's a bit limited in what you can play in local multiplayer, but I still had a very fun time with it. It's a really, really solid minigame collection, although unfortunately this is another one that my sister suddenly decided to requisition and have not seen much of since, so I will probably have to get another copy of this game. But it's a very solid title nonetheless. Another one of my big regrets is not getting a European copy of this game when I was over there. I know it goes by a different title. It's got a slightly different look, even though it's the same game. So I kind of wish I'd gotten that, but that'd be a cool, alternative or double to have in the collection. A cool way to own 2 copies of this game. But yeah, no, just an awesome minigame collection. I feel like this is one of the must-haves for Nintendo Switch. Like, I'm probably a little more biased towards it than I should be, than most people are, but I really do feel like this is just such an awesome minigame collection to have. You're gonna find something to love in this collection, whether you like card games or board games or, just general sports games, whether you grew up with fond memories of the Wii and its motion-controlled minigames, or some of the things that there were in things like Wii Play and Wii Sports, some of those titles. You're gonna have a good time with this game. Curse to Golf is, I think, the one limited run title that I have played in any capacity. Played it a little bit for this past tier list, end of year tier list. And it's a cool little, golfing roguelike game. It's not one I got super into just because it's very kind of grind heavy. But it's an alright time if you don't mind the grind. Then, and you also are okay with sports, with golf games specifically, then you might have a good time with this game. It's just not something I was able to get into super easily, but I can certainly see the appeal of this game. It's a fun enough title. Wouldn't recommend it to everyone necessarily, or even most people, but if there's a very specific demographic of people I feel like this game would appeal to, and so for those few people, I think this is probably a really solid title. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, hands down one of the best platformers ever made. It is just so good. The level design is fantastic. There's so much detail. There's so much creativity. It's an absolutely phenomenal title. It is kind of bogus that they're charging, $60 for this game when it was released for $50 on the Wii U and then later bumped down to $20 through Nintendo Selects, just for them to, release it back up at $60 for the Switch. I think that's kind of dumb. But regardless, this is a phenomenal, super replayable 2D platformer that I played for the first time this past year and had an absolute blast with. It's a really fun game, and I will definitely be coming back to it eventually, even though I'm not the biggest platformer guy. So I feel like that should say a lot right there. Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition is one of the more valuable, I guess Switch games that I own. And it's kind of a cool crossover, kind of a cool fighting crossover. Obviously taking a lot of Zelda characters and placing them in this large kind of Dynasty Warriors style game. It has the Warrior style combat, a few Warriors characters, I believe, and for those into Warrior style games, this is probably one of the better titles there is. It's big, it's got plenty of content. I'm just unfortunately not a big Warriors style, Warriors fan, as I have discovered through this game. It's just not my preferred style of game. I'm not really a big hack and slash guy, I guess. For what it is, I think it's pretty fun. There is something kind of satisfying about being able to mow down massive hordes of enemies, and there's some satisfaction to be gained from that, but it's not my style of game. Still, between this and Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, I think you've got some very solid Zelda-inspired Warriors hack and slash games. So it's been a cool thing to own. A little cool game that I had some fun with. It's just not really for me. Keeping up with the Zelda games, we've got Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and these have been the system sellers for me, man. I mean, Breath of the Wild was, I've said this before, it was the reason I bought a Nintendo Switch, and it was absolutely worth every penny. And Tears of the Kingdom has been a very solid follow-up. I have a hard time trying to determine which is the better game. They've got pros and cons for each, but I quite like both of them. I had a great time with both titles. Both are, at the very least, strong Game of the Year contenders. These are just phenomenal open world titles. I don't really know what there is to say about these games that hasn't already been said, but they fuel creativity in ways I've never felt before. These are just outright phenomenal titles. I know it's a bit controversial for the older, hardcore Zelda fans. I know Nintendo wants to go more in this open world direction for Zelda. And I know that's not the most popular decision for the fans of the older style, Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time style of Zelda game. And I can understand the merits of both different styles of games. Personally, I quite love this, but I feel like something has been lost by just completely ignoring those older styles of games. So I feel like you got to go back to those eventually. Throw those older fans a bone. You can't just completely abandon that portion of the fan base. But still, absolutely love these games, and am excited for Zelda in the future. Luigi's Mansion 3, easily one of the most polished games on the Switch. It is. Man, this game looks good. I mean, the visuals, the lighting, the effects, the animations, it is so unbelievably polished. It looks so good. I absolutely love this game. It looks just outright fantastic. I've played through this game a couple of different times. Once when I first got it a couple of years ago, and then once again last year for Halloween, just to spook something up. And I feel like this is a really solid return to form for the Luigi's Mansion franchise. The 3DS title was, it was great to see a sequel to Luigi's Mansion, but it wasn't quite what everyone, I guess, wanted it to be. However, I think Luigi's Mansion 3 is definitely up there with with the original title. It's got plenty of its own personality. It's got a lot to do. It's got a lot to love. It's a really, really fun and solid title. And hopefully they go just as big with 4 whenever that eventually comes out. I'm not asking for it anytime soon, but I think this style of Luigi's Mansion game, this amount of detail and polish, it shows a lot of promise, and I know it's probably something that a lot of people are excited to try. Mario Golf Super Rush. This game is bad. This game is up there as in terms of representing what's wrong with Mario sports games nowadays. There's very little content to this game. There's not a whole lot of that Mario flair. I mean, I love me some golf games, and so I had a really good time playing through this game. I've got a lot more hours in this game than most reasonable people should, but even then, I'll still admit that it's not a great title. There's not much to this game beyond just playing it online, having some shenanigans with your friends and the courses. I had a good time with this game, but it's really not all that good. The adventure mode is nothing special. Online multiplayer isn't really that much of a I feel like that much of a draw for this game. The speed golf wasn't as fun as it should have been, nor did I love the arena golf as much as I wanted to. Abilities were pretty nonsensical and very repetitive. It was more or less the same thing repeated over and over and over again. Motion controls is not a great draw, and a lot of the courses were pretty bland, especially upon initial release. I know it got updates over time. We got some new courses over time, but this was really just not a great golf game. And after being so excited for when this game was initially announced and then later released, it was really disappointing to see it come out in the state that it did. Very disappointing golf game. Would love to see a return to the older style of Mario sports titles, the ones with lots of character and charisma and that had just all sorts of wackiness baked into the game. Those were great times. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I mean, it's you gotta have it. This is the multiplayer game for Nintendo Switch. It's and it's one of the best Mario Kart games I think we have ever seen. I know the boys aren't gonna agree with me on that one, but it is what it is. I mean, it's got just an insane amount of content with the DLC. It's got phenomenal track design, beautiful visuals. It's got lots of characters and kart selections. It's got lots of items. It's got a solid battle mode, which is something that Mario Kart 8 was really lacking in. I don't know, this feels like a very solid Mario Kart experience. It's got great online multiplayer. It just doesn't really feel like it's missing out on much, even when compared to older games in the series. It's a very solid Mario Kart experience, and I've had a ton of great fun playing this game. There's a reason why this is the best-selling game on the Switch thus far. It's the Switch game. It's the Switch multiplayer game. I don't really know what else there is to say about Mario Kart 8 or 8 Deluxe. You gotta have it. You gotta have it. Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. A bit of a weird title to get released so early on in the Switch. A Mario and Rabbids strategy combat shooter game. I don't know. But regardless, this is a fantastic title. It definitely did better, both sales and critically, just for being one of the early Switch games, and that was definitely why I bought it, was because it was one of the, the early Switch games. Wasn't much to own on the Switch back in that initial 2017 year. After you got done with playing Breath of the Wild, there wasn't a whole lot to do other than play Mario Kart 8 Deluxe races and wait for Mario Odyssey to come out. So I got this to kind of pass the time, and it was a pretty solid experience. It is a bit difficult to see Sparks of Hope not doing as well as Ubisoft would have liked, but it's cool to see such a weird collaboration and it working out so well ultimately, and it really was a great strategy game. Lots of lots of difficult levels and missions to undertake. But I had a good time with it. It was a really fun time, fun little RPG. And I do recommend picking up this title if you have the chance. It's a cool little experiment. I think it worked out really well. It's a fun thing to have in the collection. Metroid Dread, the long-awaited 5th mainline entry in the Metroid series. This game has a very interesting development cycle in that it was originally supposed to be released in the mid-2000s, but they didn't have, I guess, the technology wasn't up to par for what they wanted to make. And so they kept developing it very discreetly in the background for many years until it finally got released on the Switch a couple years ago. And it was both my and many people's first Metroid experience. From what I've heard, this is one of the harder Metroid titles, and from what I've played, it is pretty tricky. It is definitely tough. It is definitely a more intense experience than, I guess, what I would have expected from a Metroid game. It's got some really tough boss fights between the Emmy zones and the various bosses throughout this game. It is tough, but it is a really fun and intense game. And I do highly recommend. It was great to see Metroid finally come out after spending so long in hiatus. Great to see a good polished 2D Metroid game again. And I feel like hopefully we'll be getting more Metroid games in the future after getting Metroid Prime remastered earlier last year, and we'll hopefully be seeing Metroid Prime 4 at some point. Pikmin 4, another big title, one of last year's biggest Nintendo releases. It was a long-awaited, long-anticipated, and hopefully it was worth the wait for most people. It was my first full Pikmin experience, but I had a very solid time with Pikmin 4. It's got it's very well-rounded, I would say. It's got a lot to do, a lot of fun areas to explore, a lot of detail. It's very visually beautiful. It's very intensely strategic, and I had a really good time with it. It's very cute. It's very charming. And a really solid introduction into the Pikmin series. I feel like just about every Pikmin entry has had its own unique quirks and characteristics, and yet they have somehow all been very solid real-time strategy games. And so that's been really cool to see. I'm very glad I picked up a copy of this game, and I had a really good time with it. It was just a very solid Pikmin experience, and the fact that we can now play all Pikmin games on the Nintendo Switch, between 3 Deluxe, this, and the 1 and 2 combo that they released last year. That's really cool to see. And so yeah, I've enjoyed my time with Pikmin, and we'll probably be picking up more of the Pikmin games in the future. Moving one shelf down, things are starting to get tricky. My tripod can't go too much lower than this, but we're just gonna yet again do all of these in one fell swoop. Pokemon titles. The Pokemon on the Switch has been it's been a mixed bag at best. We'll put it that way. Obviously, the first one we got was Let's Go Pikachu. This being the first, I guess, first major Pokemon title, first, I guess, mainline Pokemon title on a home console. And it was not really what a lot of people, I guess, wanted to see. I mean, it's a solid, I guess, a solid enough remake of the Pokemon Yellow, of the first-gen Pokemon games. But it feels very much like an introductory title for those who have not yet played a Pokemon game, or had only really played like Pokemon Go or something like that, implementing a lot of Let's Go mechanics and being, I guess, a game that you trade Pokemon Go Pokemon into. It's kind of weird, kind of a weird collaboration on that end. Then we got Pokemon Sword, and this is I don't know. This was not very well received. It was supposed to be the first kind of open world, first steps into an open world Pokemon game, and it did not get a very strong reception. But despite that, I had just such a good time with this game. I don't know what it was, but I put so many hours into this game. Behind Breath of the Wild, I think this is my most played game on the Switch. I think it's because when I got this, my roommate, one of my roommates in college, was really into Pokemon as well. He also got Pokemon Sword or Shield or something like that. And he had a group of friends online that he played competitive Pokemon with. And so I got really into like breeding and trying to create a competitively viable team. So yeah, I don't know why this is the game I got into it for that. I didn't really get into that for any of the games after this. Just this title for some reason. But I mean, I had a ton of fun with it when I did. So I know a lot of people don't like it, but it's still gonna hold a special place for me. Brilliant Diamond. This is probably one of the lowest points in the Pokemon series. Initially, I thought it was okay, but the more I played it, the more it became just more and more of a turnoff to me. The fact that that Pokemon, this was something that Pokemon fans have been requesting for so long. I mean, I already said I'm a big fan of the Gen 4 titles. I think that's the best generation of Pokemon, and so to see the Pokemon Company kind of just and Game Freak kind of just completely ignore the long requested Gen 4 remakes to hand it out to Ilka. And while they worked on something completely different, ultimately I think it worked out for them because they did come up with a sort of formula that will work out in the long run, hopefully. But it was really disappointing to see this as the answer to what we had all been waiting for and all been desperately wanting. It was really tough to see. Afterwards, obviously, we got Legends Arceus. This is what Pokemon Company and Game Freak was working on while Ilka was working on Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. They needed some extra manpower to work on those games while they could do this. And while this feels very much like a prototype, I think, for an open world Pokemon game, I actually really liked Legends Arceus. It's got a lot of gameplay changes, a lot of gameplay tweaks to the Pokemon formula that I actually really enjoyed. Much faster battles, much easier, catching and exploration. Inventory management, which is a lot more fun than it sounds like. I just had a really solid time with this game. I really liked the art style, I liked the presentation, and I know it still had some performance issues, but I still really loved this game. Had such a really solid time with this title when it first came out, and it was lovely to see a kind of a vision for Pokemon in the future. And finally, that leads us to Pokemon Violet. Obviously, it's the most recent entry in the Pokemon series, and I feel like this is kind of going to be the formula going forward, is a more open-ended style of Pokemon game, maybe Pokemon games every 2 or 3 years, with DLC years in between. It was very poorly optimized. It really did not run well. It did not look great visually, but despite that, I had a really good time with this game. It was so cool to see like a vision for Pokemon being executed, to have great gameplay, to have great, open world and exploration. The story still wasn't anything special, and the visuals and optimization of the game was horrific, but I had a really good time with this. It was a really good open world Pokemon game. I think that was the conclusion that a lot of people drew, that it was a really fun introduction to open world Pokemon, even if it ran like piss. And yeah, I actually quite like Scarlet and Violet, I guess, despite my generally mixed thoughts on them. So yeah, still haven't gotten the DLC for Violet, but I will probably get that eventually and give it a try. I think that's the first time I've missed out on anything like Pokemon in a long time. I got the DLC for Sword and Shield when that came out, and I've played pretty much every Pokemon and DLC since Y. So yeah, I don't know if I'm falling off a little bit, but at the very least, I don't think any series can spark nostalgia, childhood love, and fond memories like Pokemon. So it's still a game I'll be collecting till the day I die, I'm sure. All right, enough about Pokemon. Red Wings Aces of the Sky. As you can probably see, this is another one of the games I got over in Europe. I do like me a good arcade aerial combat game, or just some good aerial combat in general. So I was very tempted when I saw this game to pick it up. It was definitely on one of the videos I saw as for games that are sold in Europe physically, at least, that are not sold in the US physically. I'm pretty sure you can get those on the Switch eShop if you're really desperate for it. I don't think it's like that great of a game. It's kind of repetitive. A lot of its missions are very samey feeling. There's not really a whole lot of variety in like the environments in which you fight in, or variety in missions that you undergo. It's a pretty generic, kind of repetitive arcadey aerial combat shooter game. So, but it's at least cool in that it's one of the few, like, really the only German game I have. They've got their own specific rating system that goes alongside PEGI. Because the Germans are a little weird like that. PEGI's not good enough for them. They've got to use their own rating system, even though their own rating system usually agrees with whatever PEGI does. So it's yeah, I don't know. It's a cool little quirky game to have, especially since the spine is different font, different location. It's centered text as opposed to a line left. So it kind of stands out, but it's beyond that. It's not really anything super special. It's an alright game. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game complete edition, aside from being in competition for one of the longest titles in my collection, is also the first game I purchased by Limited Run. They were selling these at Best Buy for like $5. So I figured that's probably a pretty good deal, and I scooped it up. I've heard good enough things about it. It's a kind of a fighting adventure game, beat 'em up style arcade game. Absolutely love the Scott Pilgrim movie. Haven't read much of the comics or any other like format of this game or this story, but at least the movie was really solid. I know a lot of people who loved the movie. It was pretty well received, and I definitely loved watching it. It's a very fun film, and I highly recommend it. So I've heard solid enough things about this game. Just a generally pretty fun beat 'em up. I'll get around to it eventually. It's not something I'm dying to play, but I'll probably play it before too long. The Super Mario games, we've got quite a few of these, as you can see. We're gonna go ahead and start with Super Mario Odyssey, since it was the first one released. Obviously, this is one of the big Switch announcements early in its life, and is still probably pretty highly ranked in terms of Switch games. It was definitely one of the big Game of the Year contenders when it came out, and I think it's probably one of the better Mario games out there. I definitely had a lot of fun with this game. I don't think it's probably a little more replayable than maybe something like Breath of the Wild, which it was pretty frequently compared to in the year it came out. Though I think, like Breath of the Wild, a lot of that magic comes from just the first playthrough of this game. But still, it was a really solid game. It was a lot of fun getting to explore these various worlds, these kingdoms, getting to have various abilities based on being able to take over enemies' bodies. That was kind of fun. It was kind of cool, and it's got a good bit of challenge to it, especially if you go to some of the post game levels, Dark Side of the Moon, Darker Side of the Moon. Those are really some tough, challenging platforming stages. Yeah, just a really solid 3D platformer, one of the best in my opinion of the 3D Mario games, and definitely a title I had a lot of fun with in that initial year of the Switch. 3D World plus Bowser's Fury is one I played earlier this year. I guess this was a way to, I don't know, spruce up 3D World a little bit for the Mario anniversary. But yeah, this was I guess a great way to re-examine 3D World after its initial release, and it being kind of very warmly received, and then being looked at a little more critically later on. It didn't really do for the Wii U, I guess, what people wanted it to. It wasn't like the big 3D Mario game. It was kind of a weird sequel to 3D World on the DS, or 3D Land on the DS. Bit of a weird title that when it initially released. Although I guess a lot of people can say that it has its place in the Mario canon. But I personally am not like the biggest fan of it. I had a fun time when I played it, but didn't fall in love with it. However, Bowser's Fury is pretty cool. It's a cool new take on the 3D Mario formula, combining elements of 3D World and Odyssey into some of these more open-ended levels with some of these like kind of more traditional platforming stages and that sort of thing going on. It's a pretty cool game, pretty good value, I guess, for what you're getting, considering how replayable something like Bowser's Fury is. And then we've got Super Mario 3D All-Stars, the most infamous game in the Switch collection. The old, let's sell it for only 3 months, that way everyone will buy it thinking it's going to be rare and it'll sell 10 million copies. Despite that, though, this is still probably, I think, the most valuable Switch game I own. It's being resold for well above MSRP, which is kind of wild to think about, but at the same time, look at what you're getting. I mean, these are 3 of the all-time great 3D platformers, Super Mario 64, Sunshine, Galaxy. I bought it immediately after it was announced. I remember watching that anniversary of Mario stream, and immediately after this game got announced, I went on the website and pre-ordered this game solely because of Mario Sunshine. That was a period of time where I was still really interested in the GameCube. I mean, I still am interested in the GameCube, but Sunshine was one of those titles that I'd never gotten to play and was really interested in playing, but it was super expensive at the time. So I could either spend $60 on just Sunshine, or I could spend $60 and get all 3 games. You know, for me, that was kind of a no-brainer. Ultimately, I played a little bit of Super Mario 64, you know, respect to the classics. I played some of Sunshine, but this game was really what got me into Super Mario Galaxy, what made me rediscover a love for Super Mario Galaxy, and figure out why people talked about Galaxy as warmly as they did for so many years. Galaxy was my first 3D Mario experience on the Wii, and I played a little bit of it, but it was never a game I got super into. And then I got it on as part of 3D All-Stars, and eventually 100% completed it. So yeah, this game, for me at least, you know, it's a pretty bare bones collection of these 3 games. People weren't very happy when this released, just because it's these 3 games and their soundtracks, and that's what you're getting for Mario's 35th anniversary. It was a pretty bare bones collection, not a whole lot of, like, you know, collectibles or concept art or anything like that, or, you know, other cool features that you might maybe expect for a big anniversary release like this. But for me at least, I quite like this game. I think it's quite a good value for what it is. You know, it's at the very least, it's worth $60, even if it's not the best celebration of Mario. It's worth $60. It was worth MSRP when it released, and now it's even more than that. So the fact that you can play pretty much every 3D Mario, aside from Galaxy 2 and 3D Land on the Switch, which, you know, Galaxy 2 is a little disappointing, but 3D Land, I think, is kind of understandable. It's not like a must-have title. You can play most of the major 3D Mario games on the Switch, and I think that's pretty cool. And then, of course, Super Mario Bros. Wonder released this past year, and after years of the new Super Mario Bros. Franchise feeling pretty stagnant, I feel like Super Mario Bros. Wonder is more or less what the series needed. It's super creative, super fun, super funky, a great 2D platformer, great family game. I had a lot of fun with it. It's not quite as challenging as something like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, but it's a fun game regardless, and it continually amazed me with how creative the developers got with this game. So yeah, I had a really good time with this. This was definitely one of my top titles of last year. And overall, I think these are four very solid titles that are worthy of having a place in anyone's Switch library. So absolutely check them out. Super Mario RPG, this is the most recent pickup, the most recent addition to the collection. Also came out this past year, and I just finished playing through it, and it's been pretty solid. This is my first Mario RPG title. I mean, it's a remake of the first Mario RPG title, but I had a good time with it. It's not particularly long, it's not particularly difficult, but for someone who's still trying to get into RPGs, it's a pretty solid title. It's a great kind of introductory title to the series. You know, Mario is a pretty, great character for wanting to introduce someone to any particular genre. You can just slap Mario on the cover, and suddenly it's pretty approachable. So yeah, this was a really solid, game for those who are kind of new to RPGs and want something like an easier experience. Maybe an RPG for younger kids. It's got plenty of that kind of wackiness, kind of goofiness. I mean, beyond the updated HD visuals, 3D models, it feels like a very one-to-one, remaster of that older title. It's got a lot of the same art style. A lot of the animations still feel very reminiscent of what it was. The world, the items and that sort of thing, character designs. It all feels very similar to how it did or how it looked, on the 64. So, it's whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing, is up to the player. I would have liked a little more polish, but it's cool that it feels like a pretty solid one-to-one remake, and I had a good time with this game. It was a fun little experience. It was a fun little romp, and I played it for about as long as I wanted to. Right as it was starting to get a little old, it ended, and I had a good time with it. It was a fun length. It was a fun RPG. Smash Brothers Ultimate. What a title. I mean, I'm really not sure how they are going to top this title, how you are going to advance the series beyond this. I mean, literally every character, every stage, every thing from any previous Smash Brothers title is in this game. I really don't know how you're going to go beyond this. To me, this was kind of the perfect blend of competitive and casual gameplay. I feel like just about anyone can get into this game. And for a while, I tried to play it competitively. Really, my freshman year of college, I had a couple of roommates with Switches, and so we played a lot of Smash Brothers and Pokemon, and so I tried to get into this competitively with them, and joined the esports club at school, and ultimately found out that I was really not that good at Smash Brothers. I haven't really played a whole lot of this game since. That idea of either you got to play this game like tens of hours per week and really try to be the best, and all of that didn't really resonate with me, and so I kind of fell off pretty hard for Smash Brothers Ultimate. But this has been a great entry in a great series, an all-time classic series, and it's been a good bit of fun. I've quite enjoyed my time with Smash Brothers Ultimate. Not something I'm dying to go back to. I've had my fun. But every now and then it's a fun game to fire up, and it's one of the better multiplayer games on Switch, certainly. Siberia, the last of the titles that I got in Europe, a Switch port of the classic Xbox and PS2 game. I think they sell this digitally over in the States, but I think Europe is the only place you can find a physical copy for the Switch, and as you can see, I got it at the same used French game store that I got FIA European Truck Racing at. I mean, you can see from the cover, it's an old game. It just looks old between the visuals and the graphics, character models, that sort of thing, lighting and all of that. It looks like an older game, but it's I don't really know too much about Siberia, but I remember watching gameplay of it, and it looked pretty cool, and so I saw that given that it had a Switch version, it might be worthy of being picked up. So it was one of the games on my short list of titles I was interested in and getting a physical version of while I was in Europe. So still haven't played it, but we'll get around to it eventually, and I've heard pretty solid things about Siberia. I mean, it's an older title, but for an older title, I have heard solid things. So, not really sure what to expect, but hopefully it's all good. And the last Switch title, we've got the wonderful 101 Remastered. Seems a little interesting. I've heard interesting things about it. I think the biggest problem is the fact that this game was really made to be on the Wii U. From what I've seen, it was like you had the Wii U gamepad, and you could select which hero you wanted to play as, and then you had the gameplay up on your big TV screen. And then with the Switch version and the PS4 version, They've got like that little Wii U screen that's kind of overlaid onto your actual screen. It's kind of covering up a big portion of your screen. And you've got to switch between screens whenever you want to change your character. It just feels very clunky and not very well done. It was a game that was very obviously made for Wii U, and it doesn't run quite as well on Switch. And just the thought of this game being on PS4 is really weird, because just looking at it, it feels like a Nintendo game. It feels like it should have been solely a Nintendo game. And yeah, it's not. But yeah, I bought this because it was cheap and I'd heard good enough things about it. So yeah, we'll get around to Wonderful 101 eventually. The Wii, it was my first home console, and I vividly remember opening up that package on, what was it, like Christmas '09, something like that. I'm sure it was the first home console for a lot of kids my age, and I have a ton of fond memories with it. Probably a lot more than just about any other console I own, aside from maybe the DS. But anyways, we're starting off with Big Brain Academy Wii Degree. It's a classic little multiplayer game, great for local and also online play. You know, little simple brain teaser mini games, and you get to see, you know, who's the smartest, who's the most intelligent lad among the boys. It's an absolutely classic title, very accessible. It's got the Touch Generations branding up there, so this was a super fun little game. Not something I played a ton of. When I was young. In fact, I got this copy fairly recently, but this is a classic title. It's what the Wii did best, in my opinion. It's simple, fun, made unnecessarily competitive. The Black Eyed Peas experience. This was part of the big dancing game craze, you know, back when Just Dance and that sort of thing was popular. I guess I don't know if this is part of the Dance Central line of games or not. I know there were a few of these experience titles featuring one specific artist. I'm not sure I can even recall popping this game in. It's the Black Eyed Peas experience. I don't think they have a particularly strong reputation in this modern day and age, but you know what? They had their place in the 2000s and early 2010s zeitgeist. So you know, it's a thing. What annoys me the most about this game is just the fact that the spine does not fit with really anything else in the Wii library. It sticks out like a sore thumb on the shelf. It's awful. Blazing Angels Squadrons of World War II. This is a classic title I played a ton of over at Davis's house. Did a lot of little local multiplayer matches for this game, and eventually I picked up a copy for myself. Little World War II arcade aerial combat title based on the Blazing Angels arcade machines, which I didn't know existed until after I had already purchased and played this game. But it's a title I have a lot of fond memories of. You know, a lot of variety in the missions. You get to play in just about every theater of World War II. You know, this was back when I was really into World War II. I was a big World War II history buff. Oddly enough, in elementary and middle school. For some reason, I chose that to be into that when I was, that young, instead of into World War II when I was 60, like most people. Still, you get to play in just about every theater. They got all sorts of planes for you to check out and fly, and a variety of missions and all that. It was a good game. I had a lot of fun playing it. It's a lot better than most people probably expect it to be. I don't think it's a super necessary title. It's got some pretty, clumsily implemented motion controls, and you can do regular controls if you will, but you got to go with the motion controls because it's the Wii. You got to play this game in the goofiest way possible. We got a couple of the Call of Duty titles for Wii, Call of Duty 3 and Call of Duty Modern Warfare Reflex Edition. I think the Call of Duty titles on Wii were very much just a mixed bag, I would say. You start with I think they started with Call of Duty. No, actually, I think Call of Duty 3 was the first Call of Duty title on Wii. I think it controls okay. It definitely went up and down in terms of quality of controls, but the game is fairly well built. I know after this, Call of Duty World at War was really poorly built. It was not very well optimized for the Wii at all, although, I mean, it's Call of Duty on the Wii. It's not going to run well regardless. Modern Warfare was, I think, at least a little bit better, did control better, and at least I'd say if you played either of these titles, at the very least, you played these games. But yeah, these weren't like super optimized, FPS games made specifically for the Wii. It was more so just a way to play these games if you only had a Wii. I mean, Call of Duty 3 didn't even have multiplayer as a mode or option, which is kind of a bummer. At least Modern Warfare Reflex Edition does. It's got that, the classic Wi-Fi connection symbol up there, so... Yeah, not the best first-person shooter on Wii, but classic titles, regardless. And I think the fact that they are on Wii at all is kind of fun. It's kind of funky, but you got to. It's one of the most popular first-person shooter franchises of all time on what was at the time the most popular console. Gotta have it. The Blob, which is actually a really interesting title in my opinion. It was developed by Blue Tongue, a developer under THQ who was known primarily for licensed kids games, stuff like the Polar Express game and Nicktoons Battle for Volcano Islands, stuff like that. In fact, The Blob was their first original title in like 10 years at the time. It's a game that a lot of people would look at and just immediately assume is shovelware, but it's actually a really fun little funky title where you go around the city as as The Blob, the superhero, and paint the town from take it over from the evil Inked Corporation. Just a fun, very colorful title. It's got a lot of flair, got a lot of visual style, and it's definitely a title that feels very at home on the Wii. For such a small developer working under a company as infamous, known, whatever you want to call it, as THQ, this is actually a really solid game to the point where it did get a sequel on PS4, I think, or at least on PS3, which honestly, the sequel is what I remember more than this original title for some reason. Donkey Kong Barrel Blast is just a really bad racing game. It was supposed to be a racing game, made to be played with the Donkey Kong bongos, those that classic accessory from Donkey Kong Jungle Beat and Donkey Konga, titles like that on the Gamecube. And then this title got ported onto the Wii, and then they decided to use it exclusively with motion controls, which makes just absolutely no sense whatsoever, especially considering that it was designed around the bongos, and the bongos do work on the Wii. So why can't you play them? But yeah, pretty bland levels, pretty bland tracks, not really much strategy or fun item play, anything like that in this game. Yeah, just a really bad racing game. Classic. GoldenEye 007. Now, unlike the Call of Duty titles, this is a first-person shooter that feels custom-made for the Wii. I think it just looks a lot cleaner, a lot more vibrant than the Call of Duty titles do on Wii. Its visual style is, not only much more distinctive, but also it makes looking at things a lot easier. Plus, it's quite possibly the best multiplayer game on Wii, both for local and online play. It was really, really good online. That plus the mission, it's a classic 007 story with voice acting and character models based on Daniel Craig's 007 films, which is really cool to see. Just a really fun little story. It really feels like you're playing right through the movie, and I like it. It's quite fun. I really liked playing through this game. But yeah, if you need a shooter game on Wii, first of all, I'm not entirely sure what your priorities are. But second, yes, this is absolutely the game you should be buying. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. I'm not really sure how many of these Harry Potter games they did early on, but I do remember, doing things like the duels, the potion making, the Quidditch matches, exploring Hogwarts, that sort of thing. I remember having my fun with this game. Not one I played a whole lot of, but yeah, I don't really hear a whole lot of people talking about Harry Potter games of old, or really just Harry Potter games in general. I feel like that'd be a great world to explore, and I feel like this game did a decent job from what I remember of it, of, kind of exploring the castle and grounds and, doing Harry Potter activities, that sort of thing. Nickelodeon's iCarly, the video game, is, this is an absolutely iconic show, is something I watched a ton of with my sisters. It's the spawn of quite a few memes. It's actually kind of a WarioWare spin-off. It's just a ton of micro games combined into one story. I think I remember beating this game in the span of a single afternoon on, I want to say, like Halloween Day, something like that, something weird like that. But yeah, one game I played once and haven't really touched since until, right now. The Just Dance titles, Just Dance 4 and Just Dance Kids games we, you had to have experienced at least once in your life. Should tell you how long ago I first got the Wii. The fact that we were playing Just Dance Kids when we initially got it. Yeah, we were pretty young. I mean, there's some like decent titles on here, like All Star is an all-time classic. Kung Fu Fighting, Surfing USA. You got some decent titles on this. Although Just Dance 4 is really more of the, I guess, general public is what this is going to appeal to. But yeah, not really games I'm into anymore. In fact, I feel like they're kind of a plague, seeing so many of these Just Dance titles or them getting released over and over and over again. How long was the Wii getting Just Dance titles, now that I think about it? Oh gosh, I want to say it was like at least 2019 or 2020. It was still getting Just Dance titles, but yeah, I'm not a huge fan of these anymore. They just keep coming out with new ones, and it's kind of hard to get excited for them anymore, in my opinion. The Legend of Zelda games, Skyward Sword and Twilight Princess. I'd say of these Zelda games, these are probably my two least favorite. Though I feel like that speaks more to the quality of the series itself as a whole, rather than these two games, because I still think these are two excellent titles. Certainly must-haves within any Wii collection. Twilight Princess being the long-awaited, dark and gritty kind of Zelda title that people were anticipating when the Gamecube first came out, and then Skyward Sword being the kind of the Wii's own, Zelda title with clumsy motion controls and backtracking and such. I actually quite liked both of these titles. I just played and beat Twilight Princess for this most recent tier list, or last year's tier list, and then Skyward Sword I beat right before the HD version was announced for Switch. So it was kind of not a great announcement for me, considering it was the last game I wanted to play at that given time. But yeah, I had my fun with these games despite, vague backtracking and, vague directions and motion control bullshit in each one. I think they were fun titles regardless, and they're classic Zelda entries. I think regardless of your opinion on them, you're gonna have at least a little bit of fun with each one. We have the Lego games with, Lego, of course, being something I was into when I was younger. I mean, I was also just into a lot of these franchises. Harry Potter, like I said, Indiana Jones, Star Wars with the DS games that we already covered. Yeah, I remember playing through, especially the Harry Potter games, and having a good bit of fun with each of these titles. I liked the Lego adventure games. They were fun, they were cute, enjoyable experiences. Lord of the Rings is one I kind of forgot existed. I think it was one of the least popular of the Lego Adventures series, but I found this at GameStop earlier this year. Our boy Gray was doing some watch parties for the Lord of the Rings films. I hadn't seen them before when he was doing them last year, and during the middle of those watch parties, I happened to go to the local GameStop and found this, so I decided to pick it up just for, what the hell ever's sake. Haven't popped it in yet. I'll give it a try eventually, maybe after I finish watching all the Lord of the Rings films. But, it's a series that a lot of people have an affinity for. I can certainly understand why. It's an all-time classic. And then Lego Rock Band is a title that doesn't really fit in with the rest of these. Really belongs more with Rock Band, which we'll get to that in due time. But I actually quite liked Lego Rock Band, despite its fairly negative reviews. I mean, it's just a Rock Band game with some Lego visual flair, but it focuses more on modern rock songs, while Rock Band is a lot of like classic rock and 70s, 80s, that sort of thing. Rock Band is more, 2000s rock, and it's got some bangers like Swing Swing, Check Yes Juliet, Song 2, Tick Tick Boom. There's some heaters on here, along with, older classic rock titles. It was a good long while where I actually preferred Lego Rock Band to the original Rock Band title. Of course, I'm more into classic rock now, so the original Rock Band title is probably what I would go back to. But Lego Rock Band is a good title that I had a lot of fond memories of. It was definitely a great game during the Rock Band craze. Mario Kart Wii. Now we're getting into some of the big boy titles. This is actually not my original copy of the game. I think I got my original copy way early on in my my ownership of the Wii. I lost it somewhere, somehow, got this copy, maybe two-ish years ago, year and a half ago, something like that. But I love Mario Kart Wii. I know it's a bit of a love-or-hate title, but it's one of the big ones I grew up with alongside DS. And I think for the boys, this is probably our overall favorite Mario Kart title. Lots of fun, lots of bullshit, super wacky, out there fun. Great for online, great track design, motion controls, maybe not the best, but the general, I think the best as terms of kart selection and character selection of all the Mario Kart games. I think it's just overall a really, really solid title. I know a lot of people aren't a fan of the motion controls, the battle mode, the really, really terrible item balancing, but I think that's part of what makes it so fun, and I really had my fun with Mario Kart Wii. It's an absolutely iconic title in my opinion. Mario Party 8 is, in my opinion, the last of the truly great Mario Party titles. Things really just went downhill after this, 9 and 10 on the Wii U were really, really not good. Superstars has been a return to form, but it's not quite as good as the classics. Mario Party 6, 7, 8, anything before 9. These are all iconic titles, and I think you can make an argument that any one of these games is the best party game of all time. It's iconic. It's a classic formula, a board game with mini games, with competition, a little bit of skill, lots of bullshit. It's an iconic title. Mario and Sonic at the London 2012 Olympic Games is a beautiful example of the magic of GameStop. I ordered this title long ago from GameStop's website. They were doing a sale or something like that, and this is how it came to me. The original disc and the original box art in a black GameStop replacement case. How do you lose the case but not the art? It just makes no sense to me. I mean, this is very clearly the original art. It's got a big tear right across the middle there. How do you lose the case but not the art? Especially why it had to be this title of all Wii titles. I mean, it's got an iconic yellow case. I don't know how you lose that. It's bright yellow. But yeah, I find that honestly more interesting than the game itself. I mean, it's not like a terrible title or anything. It's a solid enough minigame collection, but I don't feel like it's anything more than that. If you want a minigame collection, there are plenty of other great titles that you can get on the Wii. It's all right. Not a game I've played a ton of. Solid enough entry in this Mario and Sonic series. Solid enough title to get for your Wii, but not one of my favorites. If you want a Mario sports game on Wii, I highly recommend these two. We got Mario Super Sluggers and Mario Strikers Charged. I think this is possibly when the Mario Sports series peaked. Mario Super Sluggers is a great title. I mean, it's a bit of a steep learning curve. It's not super easy to play local multiplayer of unless both you and your opponent are pretty well versed in this game and its mechanics. But it's a super fun title. Lots of great gimmicks, lots of skill, lots of bullshit. Just everything you would want from a Mario sports title. But Strikers Charged, man, this is, I think, arguably one of, if not the best game on the Wii. It's really, really up there in my opinion, and is probably the best Mario sports game ever made. This is another one I played a ton of with Davis when we were young, and it's it's really just something else. I mean, it's FIFA mixed with NFL Blitz and a little bit of crack cocaine. It's a wild experience. It's Mario Metal Soccer in this, intense post-apocalyptic setting, something like that. I don't know. It's brutal. It's chaotic. It's got so much visual flair and visual style compared to literally anything else in the Mario Sports series, and I loved it. I love it. It's so fun. I don't know. I can't really describe this game. You just have to experience it for yourself. It's truly a one-of-a-kind experience. We got the Need for Speed titles, and it's a bit of a mixed bag on Wii. Nitro is just a pretty generic arcade racing game, and I'm pretty sure it's fairly consistently viewed as one of the worst Need for Speed games. It's a pretty cartoony looking game with you can see the cars and the car customization on here. It's it's not all that special. It's definitely one of the most skippable entries in the series. And then Pro Street is one of the more, I guess, divisive entries. It's certainly one of the most different, at least. It's focused more on legal racing, and it's just very different. It's focused more on realism. You got a lot of tuning, very specific tuning for specific events and racing styles. There's like real world tracks that you're racing on in this game. It's a very different style of Need for Speed game, one that I haven't really played the likes of. I know a lot of people like it. A lot of people also dislike it. I think the Wii is probably not the best system to play it on. So I would like to get this game on another system, the 360 or something like that. And try it out, because I did have a good time with this game, despite being on the Wii, despite me being pretty young and not knowing how to really, play this game to its fullest potential or how it's supposed to be played. But I had a good time with it. I liked it. I really got into Need for Speed Pro Street for a little while there, and could definitely see myself coming back to it eventually, just maybe on a different system. New Super Mario Bros. Wii is, in my opinion, this is where the New Super Mario Bros. Franchise peaked. My original copy is held in this case. It's all scratched up now, doesn't work anymore. So I bought this replacement copy last year. And it's a fun title that I had. I played a lot. This is one of our go-to multiplayer titles when I was younger. That me and my sisters would play, or whenever we had friends over, this is what we would go to. Did eventually beat it as a kid. That was one of my big career highlights as a gamer, at least prior to being 15 years old. So, that was pretty fun. But yeah, it's a pretty fun, albeit fairly chaotic, multiplayer game where you can interfere with other players and what they do. It was definitely a pretty fun title, I thought. Though we didn't really get much into the teamwork aspect of it. More so just trying to screw each other over, or me doing all the work while my sister took all the power-ups. That classic dynamic, I guess. But despite that frustration, it's still a fun game. I really liked this, despite it being more of a mixed bag when compared to some of the older classic Mario titles. I still love this game. Puzzle Challenge, Crosswords, and More is a title I don't think I have ever played. I've owned this game for years, a long time. It's from what I can tell, it seems to be just a pretty generic puzzle game, crosswords, Sudoku, word searches, that sort of thing. I'm sure it would be fun if you like puzzles. These are not the kind of puzzles that I was into when I was younger. I'm a little more into them now. So I can see myself maybe giving this game a try at some point. But yeah, it's kind of just one of those games that sets your collection apart from others, that sort of thing. Also, I just realized they used Comic Sans on the box art. Suddenly, I hate this game now. Rock Band, the original, and it's for the Wii, which is really, I think, how this game is always meant to be played. I've still got my Rock Band equipment over in the corner there, but yeah, this was a pretty fun title. When it first came out, lots of classic songs. I mean, you can see the track list over there. There's a lot of all-time greats, a lot of hits. So a lot of songs I love now. Didn't really love back when I first got this game, but it's still a pretty classic title. Obviously, the craze has died off a lot over the years. It's not nearly as popular as it used to be, and I don't think there's anyone itching to play these games anymore. But it was still a pretty fun title when it was popular, and it spawned plenty of spin-offs. Guitar Hero, Band Hero. The specific bands, was it Rock Band Aerosmith or something like that? Games like that. It was fun enough when it first came out, and I do think the Wii, being the kind of party game console that it was a pretty good fit for Rock Band. I think it fit pretty well on the Wii. Skylanders Giants, man, this was such a big purchase for me when I was younger. I mean, it was tough saving up that $80 or $100 or $120, however much that starter kit was for when this game first came out. But it was all the rage when it first did come out. This was something that literally all the kids were into, and I was a kid then. I was a kid once, so I got the starter kit. Don't think I got any of the figures beyond the starter kit, because you can pretty easily beat the game with just those 30 characters. But yeah, I think I had too difficult of a time figuring out which characters I wanted to get next, and so I just didn't get any characters. And I think I'm very thankful now that the younger me didn't buy any of those figures, didn't waste their money. It's a simple kind of platformer beat 'em up game with like knack de-emphasized jumping. You just go around, fight enemies, solve simple puzzles, that sort of thing. It's not a super deep game. It's very, very much oriented towards kids. It was kind of cool to see how creative they got with the Skylanders series and these the toys to life concept later on with the Lego Dimensions and Disney Infinity, that sort of thing. It has its place in gaming history, but certainly not something that's getting revived anytime soon, I don't think. Super Mario Galaxy, like I mentioned with 3D World, this was a title I never really got into a whole lot when I was younger. Nowadays, I do really, really love this game. I have, like I said, 100% completed it, at least on the 3D All-Stars version of the game. And it is a really fun title. It's got phenomenal level design. It's got some solid power-ups. It's just a really, really fun title. Super, super replayable. Possibly the greatest 3D platformer ever made. Although I guess you can make the argument for any of the 3D Mario games that it's the greatest 3D platformer ever made. But I know there's a lot of people who really love Galaxy. This game holds a very special place in their hearts, and it does feel very grand in its presentation. So I can certainly see why it's pretty frequently ranked very highly in terms of the 3D Mario titles or 3D platformers in general. It's probably my favorite of all of them. Super Paper Mario is one I got, I think, when I bought Mario Kart Wii for the second time. About a year and a half ago, it came bundled in, and it seemed like a cool little bonus to get for purchasing that. I have not played any of the Paper Mario titles. This feels like a pretty solid one to start with. I might give this a try, hopefully before Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door remake comes out later this year. But when I first got this, I hadn't played any of the Mario RPGs. I have now played the Super Mario RPG, like I said, and or that remake, and that was pretty fun. So that may motivate me to give this one a try. As I understand it, it's more of a platformer with RPG elements as opposed to a straight up RPG itself. But it still seems pretty cool. It's got, I think, of the Paper Mario games, it's pretty well received. It's pretty well liked. Certainly more so than the most recent Paper Mario titles. So yeah, I will hope to be giving this a try before too long. Super Smash Bros. Brawl. It was it was my first Super Smash Bros. Title, so I obviously harbor a lot of very strong feelings towards this game. I know a lot of hardcore players who consider this the worst Smash Bros. Title, and certainly from a competitive aspect, yes, it is probably the worst of the Smash Bros. Titles. However, considering the Wii was a more casual machine, built towards a more casual audience, I feel like this is a actually really solid title. I mean, I used it always as a party game whenever playing it when I was younger. It was not really a game I wanted to play competitively. It was just a game I wanted to play with my friends whenever they came over. And for that, I think Smash Bros. Brawl is outstanding. It's got a ton of content. It's got a great character roster, lots of bonuses. The single player campaign mode, which was kind of cool. I had fun playing through that, even though I didn't understand what the hell was going on. Random tripping is kind of bullshit, and the visual style is not the greatest out there, but I still love this game. And ask any of the boys, we all had a great time with this title. And finally, we've got the Wii series games: Wii Fit Plus, Wii Play, Wii Sports, and Wii Sports Resort. I think most people have had at least some experience with one or more of these titles. I mean, you can't really have a Wii and not have any experience with Wii Sports. It was the Wii title, and I would like to eventually pick up one of the Nintendo Selects cases for this game. It was the only way this game got a physical, plastic case in North America, and so I would like to pick up one of those cases for that reason, just so it can be a little better preserved on my shelf as opposed to this cardboard sleeve that it was packed on. But the rest of these are pretty iconic. Most people have at least some experience with Wii Play. It was, that bonus title that came with a Wii remote, and so of course you're going to get Wii Play because it's $10 more than just a Wii remote by itself. So it's an absolute steal. And then as for Resort and Wii Fit Plus, I actually had a lot of fun with both of these games. I mean, Wii Fit Plus, it's got a lot of like the yoga and the strength training, things like that. But there's also a lot of fitness-oriented mini games that came with this that used the Wii balance board, and it's actually a lot of fun. There's a lot of fun mini games in here. There's a lot of fun to be had with this title. It was the first appearance of Woohoo Island, as it would come to be known. And yeah, I thought it was a really fun game that I had a ton of fun with when I was younger. Both Wii Fit and Wii Fit Plus, I think, are great titles to have, although I would recommend Plus if you're having to get just one of the two. But of these, I think Wii Sports Resort is quite possibly the best of all the Wii series titles. It's in close contention with Sports. But man, 12 sports as opposed to 5, and most of them have multiple game modes to play. Big island to explore, Island Flyover, that was my go-to when I was younger. I think that's a super zen title that really just makes the whole package, especially providing lots of lore and story about the island itself. And a lot of these games are really fun. We've got golf and bowling returning to this game, so I think you got the two big titles that everyone loved from Wii Sports, plus 10 more. This game just has a lot of its own style. It was super fun. It's got solid-ish motion controls, at least motion controls that work a little better than they're supposed to, even if you have to, recalibrate the Wii Motion Plus every 10 seconds. But yeah, I had my fun with all of these titles. This is, I think, really what defines the Wii, games like this. Finally, we've got the GameCube library rounding things out for Nintendo. The games that made me, I think, a collector. And we're starting with The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. I bought this game the summer before my senior year of college. And I think this is really where I started considering myself a collector. I never owned a GameCube. I hadn't really played a GameCube much prior to this game. I had some sort of fascination with the GameCube, its library of games, its weird controller, its its marketing, all of that. So I bought Wind Waker back when this was still pretty cheap. I think I bought it when it was like $30 or so. Pretty big steal nowadays to get it to that price. But yeah, this is probably up there among the Zelda titles that I've played. I played Breath of the Wild first. That was the first Zelda game that I played to completion, but I played this shortly thereafter. It's the first, I guess, more traditional Zelda title that I played and beat, and absolutely loved it. I mean, this is just such a phenomenal little game. So I shouldn't even say it's a little game. It's a big game. big kind of pseudo open world. It's got a lovely, beautiful art style that wasn't well received when it initially came out, but it has aged very well. I think it's got, some great combat. It's got, that stealth mission early in the beginning, but it's got some iconic locations. It's got some iconic enemy designs. And overall, I really loved playing through this game. And, it was kind of one of the crown jewels of my video game collection for a while. Though, it being my only GameCube game for a good, 4 years or so, I decided it had done its job. It had done a great job of being my only GameCube game, but I figured, it was probably lonely. It deserves a friend. Mario Kart Double Dash. So I got this earlier, I guess last year, about 6 months ago, and just to start building up the GameCube collection a little bit more. It's hard to find games, GameCube games specifically, at a good price nowadays, but I decided to get Double Dash because it was one of the Mario Kart titles that I missed out on, and I got the one with the bonus disc, which is a pretty difficult version of this game to find nowadays, at least for a good price. And I gave it a try, and this is definitely one of the wildest Mario Karts out there. Items are crazy. You've got the 2 players per kart. You got character special items. You got the split screen multiplayer. You got some crazy tracks. Up to 16 people in local multiplayer is absolutely insane. This is a wild game. It's certainly one of the wildest Mario Karts out there. I know it's not the most beloved Mario Kart title, but I think of the older Mario Karts, it's certainly the one that warrants being revisited the most nowadays. It's a really fun game. Frustrating if you want to play it single player wise, just because of how wild and difficult and unfair it can be at times. But it's a great game for multiplayer, I'm sure. And then rounding things out, we got Beautiful Joe. Interesting adventure game focusing on, movies and movie tropes, superheroes, that sort of thing. Kind of an interesting, kind of oddball game to round out my small GameCube library thus far, but I've heard solid things about it. So I wanted to give it a try. I saw it was on sale for a decent price, so I picked it up and haven't yet played it. Of my GameCube games, it's the only one I haven't touched yet, but it looks pretty fun. It looks like it's got plenty of its own style. I think the art style, it seems to have aged really well. I like this kind of cartoony look. I like the emphasis on movie tropes and camera recording themes and that sort of thing. Big emphasis on making movies, action movies, that sort of thing. I'll be looking forward to give it a try. But yeah, that's my fairly small GameCube collection. It's kind of a difficult console to collect for now, just because the prices have gotten pretty absurdly high for some of these games. But a great console nonetheless, I think. I've enjoyed what GameCube games I have played, and I think it's a really fascinating console within Nintendo's history. I think it's one that a lot of people have kind of come around to as of late, realizing that a lot of these games are actually pretty phenomenal, despite being very different, and despite the console not really selling well when it initially came out. But I think a lot of people are really turning around to the GameCube, or have turned around in recent years. All right, things are getting desperate when you have to abandon the tripod. It's time for the Xbox collection. Starting with my Xbox One and Series X games. Considering I don't own these consoles, the fact that I even own these games at all is, kind of ridiculous. I mean, between these and the Vita, I've started to buy more and more games for consoles I don't actually own, which is probably not the best habit to be in, but it is what it is. NBA 2K22 is a game that I bought as a prop for the Spines video that I released last year. I mean, it's an NBA game. I bought it because it was cheap and I needed a cheap prop. What's curious about this game is that, yet again, this is another game that shows off the magic of GameStop. When I went to buy this game initially, the GameStop employee took a disc and put it in a GameStop replacement case, which is not great because I needed to show off the spine for this game for that specific video. So I went, took it back, returned it, got my money back, and then a few days later I went to a different GameStop, picked up this game, and they gave me this copy, which is it's sealed, but I still paid the pre-owned price. It has a pre-owned sticker on it. I don't know how this counts as pre-owned. It's literally it's sealed. I haven't opened it. No one's opened it. So yeah. So between this and Scarlet Nexus, not only do I own a new pre-owned game, I also owned a pre-owned new game. So isn't GameStop just such a lovely place? NHL 19, kind of just the same story. You know, I bought it as a prop. I've heard the NHL games are pretty fun, so I would like to get one eventually, but it's you know, not happening with this one at least. Now GTA San Andreas, on the other hand, this is a game I have played. As you can see from up here, this is a game that works on both the Xbox One and the Xbox 360. The way they did that is they just put an Xbox 360 game in an Xbox One case. You know, they dressed it up a little bit, but it's just an Xbox 360 game. It's the exact same as where is it? As this thing over here. So yeah, I own 2 copies of this game, just because I put it on my Christmas list for 1 year. Bought the 360 copy of the game, or forgot I put it on the Christmas list. Bought the 360 copy of the game, and then received this copy for Christmas. So yeah, there's that. I mean, it's an absolutely iconic game. It's Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. You know, it's frequently regarded as one of, if not the best, Grand Theft Auto game, and it's pretty beloved by multiple people. This is not necessarily the best version of this game. It's a pretty poorly made, released port of the mobile version of GTA San Andreas, of all things. I don't know why they do that. But you know what? It's fun. I had my fun with this game. I think the fact that they did this, you know, backwards compatible with the Xbox One, Xbox 360. I think this is an interesting, I don't know, little subset of Xbox One games to try and collect for. So that might be something I go for in the future when I see more of these titles. Now it's time for the real games, the Xbox 360 collection. Starting with 2K Sports All-Pro Football 2K8. This is the last football game that 2K released. I haven't played it. I've heard good things about it, but I don't know. I find something interesting about you know, Madden alternatives like this. You know, games that don't really have like the NFL license, but are still trying to compete with Madden in that regard. So I don't know. I think games like this are kind of cool, kind of funky. I like weirder sports titles like this. Assassin's Creed was a series I got way into back when I first started collecting. I started with Assassin's Creed 2 and had an absolute blast with it. So I just kept buying more and more games. Nowadays, I would say that 2 is definitely the best one. I had my fun with Brotherhood and Revelations, but the rest, you know, Assassin's Creed 3 weren't as great, and even Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, despite being a pretty beloved title within the Assassin's Creed series, and despite me really liking it when I first played it, I haven't, you know, fallen in love with it or felt the desire to go back to it like I did with 2. But yeah, I was really into the Assassin's Creed games for a while, but now I do kind of recognize them as pretty generic open world games. There's not really a whole lot going on in their design. They're pretty repetitive. I do like Assassin's Creed 2 just because it kind of set the formula for the series. I thought the story was really fun. I liked the setting of Assassin's Creed 2, but I think it's definitely the peak of the series. The series peaked pretty early. Big bumpin', and while I'm at it, might as well do the other Burger King releases. These were developed under the supervision of or by Burger King. I don't really know which one, but regardless, they were made as advertainment for Burger King and its I guess product line. They were sold at Burger King for about $5 a piece, from what I remember, and I believe they sold pretty well. I believe Sneak King is one of the best-selling games on the Xbox 360, so you know, it was a pretty successful advertainment campaign, I would assume. I don't think there's anything super special about these games. You know, Sneak King is a pretty, you know, simple little adventure game, stealth adventure. Pocket Bike Racer, simple racing game, and then Big Bumpin', kind of a party game focusing on bumper carts. Yeah, not super deep or complex games by any means, but still cool, funky titles to have in the collection. I like having them. BioShock Infinite, pretty noteworthy conclusion to the BioShock trilogy. From what I can tell, it's pretty well liked. I don't think I've fired this one up yet. It's been sitting in the backlog for quite a while. It seems like a very interesting steampunky magic something world. Seems like the story is kind of really out there. If I had to guess from what I've read and watched about this game, but you know, I'm sure this will be something where it's like, yeah, I feel like playing some nonsense for a good day or so. BioShock Infinite will do. Bully Scholarship Edition is a T-rated game from Rockstar, so that alone makes it pretty noteworthy in my opinion. We don't really get many of these T-rated games from Rockstar anymore, and it seems to be kind of like a toned down Grand Theft Auto, if you will. You know, just a little more kid friendly, a little more, I guess, family friendly as far as Rockstar games can be. But I've heard really good things about Bully. I know a lot of people would love to see another entry in the Bully series, but, you know, considering we get approximately one Rockstar game every 20 years now, it's probably not going to happen anytime soon, if ever. This for me is noteworthy purely based on the fact that it has been sitting in the backlog longer than anything else. It is kind of what started the backlog for me after I bought it and Forza Horizon on the same day, and felt like playing Forza Horizon a little more at that time, and needless to say, haven't touched Bully since. Some Call of Duty titles, Call of Duty 2, Modern Warfare 2, and Modern Warfare 3. These are some of the first titles that come to mind when I think Xbox 360, particularly Modern Warfare 2. I think this is probably my favorite of the Call of Duties in terms of both, you know, story and visually, that sort of thing. There's not really much to comment on it at this point, you know. Everyone's played a Call of Duty or two, I would think, so. But yeah, I think they're essential titles to have in the collection regardless. Castlevania Lords of Shadow is one I found at my local GameStop, and decided to pick it up simply because I had never seen this game prior to finding it at GameStop. Never really been a big Castlevania guy, like I mentioned earlier, but this game seemed pretty interesting, you know, big 3D Castlevania game from what I can tell. We can even see that Kojima Productions worked on this game, which is kind of interesting to see. As far as Castlevania games go, I have no idea how this ranks compared to other titles. I'll give it a try eventually. It seems one of those weird, funky games that I'm going to be in the mood for, you know, every now and then. Driver San Francisco. I'm sure you're starting to notice that I've got quite a few of these generic GameStop cases for Xbox 360 games, and yeah, unfortunately, I bought quite a few of these either online. Well, mostly online. If it's in store, I try to make sure it's in the original case. But I bought a lot of these online, and so this is how they were shipped to me. I'm working on filling out this library, getting replacement cases for all of these. But until then, this is how my copy of Driver San Francisco is going to look. Pretty interesting arcade game where you can like switch bodies and drivers, switch cars like on the fly. It's pretty cool, pretty unique. It's kind of set up like a 70s detective television series or something like that. It's got kind of a cool story, cool world. I really like Driver San Francisco, what I played. It's not a particularly long game, but I enjoyed it. It's got a fun enough world. It's got fun enough racing, and that shift mechanic where you can switch drivers and cars is actually really cool and really unique. The Forza games. We actually started with Forza Motorsport 4. That was my first ever Forza title, and to this day it remains one that I have a good bit of nostalgia for. Lots of content, lots of tracks, great visuals, lots of cars, plenty of DLC. It's a super fun game. I really had a great time with Forza 4 growing up. It was one of my go-to titles. Of course, there's some others in the collection. You know, Forza 3, Forza 2, also very solid. Though, you know, they're more so here to round out the collection as opposed to games I like needed to have and you know, was really in love with. The Horizon titles, on the other hand, are games I loved and needed to have. I started with Forza Horizon, and it was an awesome experience. Very different when compared to all the other Horizon titles. It's got more of a story to it, I guess. Big, a little more character driven. It's kind of unique in that way, and it also the fact that they decided to have it take place in Colorado in the middle of the desert. Little weird, I guess, but it's cool. It's got a cool map. And then Horizon 2 is really a game that should be on the Xbox One and just the Xbox One. This is not a great version of this game. It did not leave a great first impression when I initially played it. It's kind of buggy, kind of glitchy. My car runs into invisible walls and clips on objects and things for no reason whatsoever. It's really hard to earn money in this game, and the world just isn't as fun to explore. They did not let you kind of dictate the pace of what you explore and when, which is really disappointing for an open world game, especially one on driving and racing. It's something they fixed with later Forza titles, or Forza Horizon titles, but I think of the Forza Horizon games I have experienced, this is probably my least favorite. GTA San Andreas, like I mentioned earlier, is my second copy of this game. I find it kind of interesting how they released it as a Platinum Hits game, bestseller, when it never released on the 360 prior to this. It was just an Xbox game, an original Xbox game, so that's kind of funky. Also, like I said, this is the mobile phone version of GTA San Andreas. Why? I mean, you can really tell from the menu screens, it's a very obvious port of the phone version. I don't know why you couldn't port the original Xbox version. That's kind of disappointing. But beyond that, I mean, it's GTA San Andreas. It's a good time. It's an all-time classic. We have the Halo games. We've got a Combat Evolved Anniversary Edition in a completely blank case. Thank you, GameStop. We also have 3 ODST and 4. Which I got the replacement case for. Thank you again, GameStop. But yeah, of these, I think ODST is probably my favorite. It's at least the most intense of these games in terms of like atmosphere and really feeling like you've got a lot of challenges to conquer, story, that sort of thing. It's a really fun experience, though. I think I've really enjoyed Halo 3 ODST. Despite me being kind of an Xbox kid growing up, Halo was not a series I played a ton of. These are kind of like my main Halo experiences so far. I remember playing Reach at friends' houses through the Master Chief Collection. I played 4. This was my first Halo game that I owned and played to completion. The Anniversary Edition was how I played Combat Evolved for the first time. And I've slowly picked up more Halo games over the years. 3 ODST has been great, but I'm still making my way through the entirety of the Halo series. It's kind of weird it being a game I didn't really grow up with, despite being an Xbox kid, but that's just how it was for me. The Kinect games, Kinect Adventures, Kinect Disneyland Adventures, and the Kinect Sports Ultimate Collection. I think most people remember these, and personally, this is how we first got our Xbox, was as part of this the Kinect bundle. I think it came with Kinect Adventures and maybe Disneyland Adventures. I didn't really play Disneyland Adventures. I mean, it was cool to virtually explore Disneyland and ride on some of those rides, do some of those attractions, but Kinect Adventures was the one I really played a lot of when we first got our Xbox. I feel like most people have at least some memory of Kinect Adventures, or at least most people my age, these motion-controlled mini-games, trying to cash in on what the Wii did, just in a different way. It's a fun game. I'd like to eventually get a case for it, as opposed to, again, this crappy plastic sleeve, or cardboard sleeve, I guess. But the Kinect Sports Ultimate Collection, I think most people have, some experience with Kinect Sports or Kinect Sports Season 2, mostly Kinect Sports. But I don't really see this Ultimate Collection a whole lot. It's just one or the other or both, but not both on this combo pack, if you will. I don't really know how rare this necessarily is. It's weird having both of these games in one package with the add-on content. It's I don't know, it's a weird little package. I'm surprised I don't see it in more places, but yeah, the Kinect
series of games. You know, it had its place in history. They were definitely really hot for a couple of years, especially Adventures in Kinect Sports. But it did kind of die off before too long, and you know, the Xbox tried to appeal too much to the casual market, I guess. So yeah, is what it is. We've got more Lego adventure games, Batman the video game, and another copy of Indiana Jones. Specifically these combo packs, which I guess came bundled in with certain Xbox 360s. These have Kung Fu Panda and Pure on the reverse sides. You know, like I said before, the Lego adventure games were pretty fun. I don't really have anything to say about Kung Fu Panda or Pure. They're just, you know, this is a racing game. This is a kind of basic adventure game. You know, not really a whole lot going on here. I just don't see a whole lot of these combo packs around. You do see them in certain collections, but I don't see them as much as I thought I would. For a while, I didn't know how rare these were because I just didn't see people talking about them. I didn't know really where they came from or why they got combined into this one package as they did. But you know, it's a interesting little quirky game to have. Minecraft Xbox 360 edition, back when they did Minecraft for specific consoles. This was how I first experienced Minecraft and really got into Minecraft, mostly doing creative stuff. You know, creative worlds, building things. It's a pretty early version of Minecraft, to the point where you can't even do like inverted stair blocks. It's pretty limited in the things you can build and create, but regardless, I had a ton of fun with this version of Minecraft. It was a really great time playing this when I was a little wee lad in middle school. So yeah, a lot of fond memories with this game. Eventually, I did switch over to PC, playing Minecraft on YouTube. You know, that sort of thing. But yeah, I always have a strong love for Minecraft Xbox 360 edition. This was a great title to play whenever the boys came over. You know, it was one of our go-to multiplayer games, I guess. Namco Museum Virtual Arcade, a pretty solid little collection of Namco games. I mean, everyone's heard of at least one Namco Museum. You've probably got one sitting in your couch cushions somewhere. Very solid collection of games. We've got a few of the Xbox Live Arcade titles, including Pac-Man Championship Edition, which is awesome. But you know, we've got also like 25 of the classic arcade games: Pac-Man, Dig Dug, Pole Position, Galaxian. I think Mappy is on here as well. You can see quite a few of them. Miss Pac-Man, Xevious, Galaga Legions, you know. There's some really cool titles on here. It's a really nice mix of, you know, classic arcade games and then some of the remixed titles as well. Need for Speed Most Wanted by Criterion, the 2012 reboot of Need for Speed Most Wanted. This is a pretty divisive game. A lot of people really hate it just because it is not really as good as the original Most Wanted. That's pretty universally seen as the Need for Speed game, the most beloved in the series. But despite that, I actually really like Most Wanted. A lot of people describe it as a Burnout Paradise, but with licensed cars, and I do think that's pretty true. You don't have to go through a whole lot of work to unlock vehicles. It's just exploring the world and finding them in the world, which, you know, is a bit of a bummer. But I quite like it, you know, constantly running from the cops, the street races, the exploring the world and finding new vehicles. I actually really liked this game. It was a lot of simple, mindless fun, and I got into it a lot more than I would have expected to. I remember playing this a lot before I started playing Forza Horizon. This was my kind of open world racing game until I tried those titles for the first time. And I actually got into this a lot more than I did Burnout Paradise, actually. You know, I don't really know why, but I just think it's a really fun title. I wish it didn't have the Most Wanted branding on it. I feel like if it wasn't called Need for Speed Most Wanted and they called it something else, then it wouldn't really draw those comparisons, and maybe people would actually quite like this game, as opposed to, you know, it being the ridiculed title that it is. But yeah, I thought this was really fun. It had a nice selection of cars and just a really fun world to explore. I quite liked this game. We got a few sports titles, EA Sports, Madden 25, NCAA Football 12, Tiger Woods PGA Tour 12, as well as NBA 2K12. A lot of 12s. Madden 25 was kind of the main Madden game. Aside from 08 on the DS, this was kind of the main Madden game that I played whenever friends were over. And this is a really solid Madden, actually. The kind of 25th anniversary celebration of Madden is kind of cool. It was a kind of a cool celebration of the Madden franchise to this point. I'm also really excited because this year we get Madden 25 again, so I can't wait to own both versions of Madden 25. Tiger Woods PGA Tour, is a classic golf game. I haven't played this one yet, but I have played one of the older versions of Tiger Woods PGA Tour, and I quite like the Tiger Woods games. They're really fun golfing titles, and we don't really see a whole lot of them nowadays. PGA 2K is pretty whack, and it's really just not great. I don't think I've tried the new EA title that's come out recently, but I really like the Tiger Woods games. At least it's good to have a couple different versions. NBA 2K12 is really a title I got to whenever the boys came over and we want to play a sports game, we might pop this in and give it a try. I think this is pretty frequently seen as one of the better NBA 2K games for some reason. I don't really know why. I mean, it's NBA 2K. I don't really have much of a strategy when playing this game other than picking the rockets and trying to drain threes. But yeah, it was some good, simple, mindless fun for me for a while. However, the game that I have played the most of these sports games, at least recently, is NCAA Football 12. I am very excited to be getting NCAA football back this year. Because these games are absolutely classic. There's a little bit of bullshit, a little bit of college nonsense that you don't really get in titles like Madden. You can pull some ridiculous stuff in here. There's some great options, the season play, the my player, the coaching a team, those modes. Those are really fun. I can always go back to this game whenever I'm feeling bored. There's always something to do. There's always some fun to be had, some nonsense going on, and it's got that great early 2010s ESPN aesthetic that had that. ESPN had going on, like the big metal blocks, X's and O's, that sort of thing. Kind of abstract blocks and shapes and, football motifs in an otherwise blank environment. I love that. It's super nostalgic for me. Red Dead Redemption, I'm actually quite ashamed that this is what my copy looks like, but it's GTA with cowboys. I mean, it really is. It's a pretty iconic title. I haven't played Red Dead 2, so I can't say how this game compares, but I did really like what I played with this game. Like I said, I'm not super crazy for the Rockstar titles, so I liked it. I didn't love it. It was, I don't know, dragged out a bit too much for me. Didn't have the snappiness or something like that. The clean fun, I guess, that maybe GTA 5 had, which I have a bit more of an affinity for, but still, Red Dead Redemption is an absolutely classic title, if not a little more slower paced than some of the GTA titles. But it's really fun. It's got a good world for exploration. I quite like having it in the collection. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5, which is one I picked up fairly recently after my local GameStop started selling Xbox 360 games again, which was super exciting, let me tell you. I mean, the old Tony Hawk games are, some simple skater fun titles from what I've seen and remember playing as a kid. So it'll be just, I think, another one of those games where it's like, I don't know what to do, so what the heck? Let's pop in some Tony Hawk and give this game a whirl. But yeah, skater games like this are always, pretty simple, mindless fun. They're always good to pop in every now and then. And then ABC's Wipeout 2. I think this is a game I played maybe once. Wipeout was a big show. I remember watching a lot of as a kid. It was fun to watch people attempt an unfair obstacle course and get the shit beat out of them. But yeah, I mean, this wasn't anything super special as a game. I mean, it was one of my few Kinect titles. There's that going for it. But it was fun to play with your friends. But it's not something I've come back to anytime recently.
And finally, let's round things out with the original Xbox, because the collection has grown so large that I can no longer fit everything on just the bookcase over there. Like the Gamecube, this is another console that I have a bit of a fascination with. It was the first console that I remember playing as a kid, and so I've always been kind of interested in the original Xbox and its library of games. Even though it didn't sell particularly well when compared to the PlayStation 2, I think it did really well for a newcomer console. I think it's a really interesting console, really fascinating break onto the onto the home console scene for Microsoft. But yeah, so first up, we got 007 Nightfire. I bought a big bundle of games when I first got my my OG Xbox about a year and a half ago, and so I'm still making my way through that bundle of games. I haven't played a lot of them, but 007 Nightfire seems pretty fun. If it's anything like 007 GoldenEye on the Wii, I know that's a little more talked about, but I'm sure this will be pretty fun. Another kind of like, goofy first-person shooter game where it feels like you're playing through a movie or a cartoony, action script featuring the old Pierce Brosnan James Bond. Just an interesting little title. It's spicing up the collection a little bit. College Hoops 2K6. This might be my favorite game in the original Xbox collection so far. I mean, I love NCAA football, and I'm really happy to be getting it back, but man, I really miss the old college hoops games. These were just such great fun. I think college hoops is superior to, or really college sports in general, games are superior to professional sports, because there's usually just a little bit more bullshit going on. There's I just, in generally, I prefer college sports to professional sports. But yeah, the fact that there is this series of games with every D1 school. You can create a matchup between Charleston University and Elon. You can create some wild matchups in this game. There's so many teams. They got all the gyms, the uniforms for all said teams. There's hundreds of teams in this game, and it's kind of wild when compared to something like NCAA football, which only has the big D1 schools, the FBS schools, or even Madden, which only has the 32 teams in the NFL. This feels like a much bigger, more complete game, and it's a little wilder, it's a little goofier. I really miss these titles, and I hope they come back eventually. Commandos 2 Men of Courage, kind of a World War II strategy game played from a top-down perspective. Not really my go-to genre or style of game, but it's a cool thing. It provides a nice little bit of variety. Not really my go-to though. Crimson Skies: High Road to Revenge. This was one of the big Xbox exclusives back on the original Xbox, and I think of the old Xbox exclusives that have died out, this is one of the ones that most warrants a remake. Super cool atmosphere, super fun arcadey aerial combat in a massive open levels with tons of little missions to complete. Really, really cool little game. Obviously, it's kind of hard to ignore this big Microsoft company store purchase sticker on the top. This was an indicator that this game specifically was originally purchased by a Microsoft employee, which is really cool if it wasn't stuck all over the art. It's like, on one hand, I think this is a really cool little piece of gaming history that Microsoft did this. On the other hand, like, get off my box. But yeah, a really cool game. I've played a little bit of it, and it's really fun. I did really like what I played. I think it's aged fairly well, and I'd love to see a new one. Dance Dance Revolution Ultra Mix 3. You can tell this is one of the games that came in that big bundle because I don't have a dance pad. Nor do I really like dancing games all that much, like I mentioned, so this game is kind of useless to me at the moment, but I do think that Dance Dance Revolution has a bit more to it than something like Just Dance. It's a bit more fun, I think. A little easier to get into since you're pressing, specific pads on the floor as opposed to trying to wave or a Wii remote in a specific motion or anything like that. I think it's a little more accessible, a little more gamey in that way. So yeah, I will be looking to pick up a dance pad eventually for this game. So,
just because I have to, and not because I wanna play it or anything like that. It just next game, Greg Hastings Tournament Paintball Maxed. A first-person shooter game on the original Xbox. Not anything super in-depth or necessary to have, but a little more of a cartoonier or friendly, kid-friendly, family-friendly first-person shooter game. Action shooter, that sort of thing. Decent multiplayer, a fun game to have for, if you have friends over. It appeals to a little more of a casual audience than some other first-person shooter games, but, I mean, you've got the best first-person shooter you could ask for on this console at launch. Halos, both 1 and 2. It's kind of hard to have an original Xbox collection and not have these titles. These are the games to have. I don't really know what I need to say on Halo Combat Evolved. It's a absolutely iconic title, one of the all-time great games, let alone first-person shooters. And then Halo 2 was just more greatness. It was more of the same awesome combat you'd come to expect in level design, and it came with online multiplayer as well. So these are two very iconic games. You can't really have an original Xbox collection without them, in my opinion. And I was very lucky that both of them were included in said bundle. I played through a little of Combat Evolved, not through much of 2 yet, but still very solid titles. And even I can tell that these are far superior to what's been releasing as of late. Halos 4, 5, Infinite, that sort of thing. You can tell Bungie really kind of knew what they were doing when they released these titles. Lego Star Wars 2, the original trilogy, kind of one half of the complete saga, I guess. But a cool game to own regardless. I would really rather have the complete saga, but this is still a pretty cool game with the old no pupil minifigure character models. Mix and match characters, old blasters, things like that. It's a game with plenty of charm, plenty of its own character, especially when you look at some of the more recent stuff. I think there's a charm to be had in coming to the simplicity of these older Lego models and older Lego games, that sort of thing. More EA Sports titles: Tiger Woods 2004, MVP Baseball 2004, as well as Madden's 03 and 04. I think Madden 03 came as part of the bundle as well. What I really wanted though was Madden 04. I mean, I haven't played any MVP Baseball 2004. Kind of weird that this exists. When I think baseball sports games, I immediately think of MLB The Show, which for a while was a PlayStation exclusive, but I guess I forget that EA and 2K were generally pretty all over all sorts of sports. They did a variety of sports games back in the 2000s, so this is cool. I'll check it out eventually. Tiger Woods PGA Tour 2004 is one that I've played a little bit of, and it's a really solid game. When compared to something like the modern PGA 2K games, you can play as both your own character or as professional golfers on whether in career mode or on quick play matches on various courses. It's got good course selection. It's got good character selection. It's a really fun golf game with a lot of style, a lot of some really funky soundtrack choices that you really wouldn't expect for a golf game. And then Madden 04 featuring, of course, peak video game Michael Vick, one of the most famous or infamous characters of all time. This game was crazy in that you could create your own plays, make your own playbook, and then save them to your memory cartridge. And then basically go over to your friend's house with a playbook they had never seen before and just execute the wildest, most unstoppable plays you've ever seen with a quarterback who's just as fast as a running back and has got crazy throwing stats as well. I mean, it was so stupidly strong of a combination that they had to crack down on improving defense in later Madden titles, starting with 05 specifically. But yeah, what little I know about Madden laid bare right there for you. Still, I think these older EA Sports titles, this is where they were really shining. Each title had a little more personality than they do nowadays, where it's kind of just the same game over and over and over again. They were actually like tweaking the formulas, given new features, that sort of thing, coming up with distinct characteristics and personalities for these games, lots of features and gameplay modes, that sort of thing. I really miss this phase of EA. Another Namco museum. Of the various Namco museum games, this is not exactly one of the best. It's got 10 arcade games and a couple of the arrangement titles, but that pales in comparison to the 360's 25 arcade hits plus various other bonus games from Xbox Live Arcade. Not a ton of variety here. You're definitely missing some of the must-have titles. You've got the essentials like Pac-Man, Dig Dug, Galaga, Galaxian, as well as Pole Position 2, the arrangement titles, Ms. Pac-Man, things like that, but it's really just not a super deep package, and you're missing some of those other classic Namco museum titles that I certainly like having in a collection, like being able to play from time to time. So yeah, it's an alright little collection of Namco arcade hits, but not my go-to. Project Gotham Racing 1 and 2. This was a pretty iconic title. Another one of the I think must-haves as far as racing games go. If you want an original Xbox collection, it invented the kudos system, where your I guess rating at the end of a race depended just as much on your driving style and performing tricks and that sort of thing, as it did on the actual placement of how you finished. So kind of an interesting alteration to the racing game formula. It definitely made for a very interesting high score based arcade game. Project Gotham Racing itself is not super deep. It doesn't have a ton of tracks or cars or anything like that, but it's a pretty iconic title nonetheless. Project Gotham 2 has got a little more content there. You may be wondering why I have 2 copies of Project Gotham 2. They both came in the bundle, and I was kind of wondering that myself. Obviously, in one of these, we've got Project Gotham 2. And then in the other case, we've got Midnight Club Los Angeles for the Xbox 360. I don't know why this came with it, but interesting to have it regardless. But yeah, some solid racing games, some absolute classics really helped advance the racing game, and particularly arcade racing game genre. We've got the Sega GT 2002 and Jet Set Radio Future combo disc. This is, I believe, a disc that was bundled in with certain Xbox systems at launch. For me, this disc has a special place in my heart because Sega GT 2002, I mentioned that the original Xbox is the console I first remember playing. Sega GT 2002 was the first game I remember playing, and the menu music in particular holds a very, very special place in my heart. As a racing game goes, it's really nothing special. It's a very early simcade racer. It's not super deep, but I have a love for it regardless. Also, it's cool to have a Jet Set Radio game. It was a pretty iconic series in the early 2000s. I don't know how Future stands up to some of the other Jet Set Radio titles, but it's cool to have regardless. Shrek 2, I mean, you gotta have Shrek 2. It's Shrek 2. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. This is pretty frequently cited as one of the all-time great Star Wars titles, and it's really cool to have it within my collection, as small as it may be. I haven't played it yet, but I do like me some Star Wars, and I think this kind of expands upon the lore pre-movies, before any of the movies take place, I guess, before even the prequels. So it's kind of cool to have this game, expanding upon the lore of Star Wars, that sort of thing. Yeah, very excited to give this a try before too long. Hopefully I will play through it and like it before the remake comes out and give me a reason to buy the remake. Torino 2006, the official video game of the Olympic Games. I think this was before Mario and Sonic started coming out. I think the first Mario and Sonic was Beijing 2008. So before that, these were the Olympic Games. Olympic Games? Whatever. They're still doing games like this nowadays, but these are still, funky little mini game collections featuring realistic graphics. I think the Mario and Sonic games have a little more character.
are a little more, compelling to buy. But these are kind of cool too. And then lastly, because when I originally bought my Xbox, bought it used, I figured this might happen. But when I opened it up for the first time, it came with Tony Hawk's American Wasteland already in the console. When I bought it, I guess someone didn't think to check inside the console when they, I don't know, when they decided to sell it. Or didn't know how to check, or that they should check. But regardless, a free little game to get when I got my Xbox for the first time. So I guess that's kind of cool. Still haven't played it, but now I've got a couple Tony Hawk games. And that's the game collection. Honestly, it took me a lot longer to make this video than I anticipated. For those who decided to stick to the end, really appreciate it. Glad you find my life so entertaining and fascinating. It's very flattering. Maybe a little creepy. Also, nothing like going through your entire library of games to realize how absolutely massive your backlog is. Really should start making my way through a lot of these games that I haven't yet played. There are quite a lot of them. I have a propensity for buying games and then just not playing them, just getting satisfaction out of owning them. I think going through these games has given me a little motivation to try something new, finish this backlog up a little bit, maybe trying the new Final Fantasy 16, or finally getting around Super Paper Mario, or even Bully. It's been sitting in the collection for a little too long, but you know what? I think we all know that's not going to happen.